Chapter 675. The new sect was located in a mountain range in the Yen state. That place was originally occupied by great demons, but when the immortal kings arrived, they all fled. The Tianqing school took advantage of the situation and occupied it. The Yen state was not close to the Qing state. This trip by flying boat took a full month. During this period of time, Jiang Xiu could not cultivate without restraint. He was afraid that he would cause too much of a commotion and be exposed. Therefore, his progress was not too fast. The new sect is in front. Jiang Xiu looked around and had an illusion for a moment. Was he in the Tianqing school? The architectural style was all copied. Some of the mountain peaks had been treated. At first glance, it really looked similar. But when he got closer, the mountain peaks overlapped, clouds covered thousands of miles, and there were even fiery red maple leaves. Gradually, the style of the Yen state was revealed. They shuttled through the clouds and cliffs. Needless to say, it really looked like a dragon. From afar, they could see the main hall of the sect master sitting on the mountain peak that looked like a dragon's head. The enforcement elder had white hair and a youthful complexion, exuding an immortal aura as he stood in front of the new enforcement peak. The palace behind him was newer and more majestic, but there wasn't a trace of joy on his face, because these palaces had no history and weren't worth a single cent. Disciple greets elder. Forget it. The law enforcement elder glanced at Jiang Xiu. His gaze was much more indifferent than before. The disciple told him what had happened in the sect. The law enforcement elder's brows immediately furrowed even tighter. I'm afraid we have to inform the sect master of this matter, the disciple asked. Then can we ask to see the sect master? The law enforcement elder shook his head and said, the sect master has been avoiding the light since he came here. However, recently, he claimed that he was sick and could not deal with the sect's matters for the time being. You were ordered to go to the Shitong sect to enforce the law? Although the law enforcement elder's gaze was calm, after many years of enforcing the law, some disciples' legs went weak when they saw him. Before they could ask, they confessed everything. Jiang Xiu said, yes. The law enforcement elder asked, who gave the order? According to normal thinking, of course, they would push the blame to a dead person, so that there would be no evidence. Qin Qing and the others also thought so, but they didn't expect Jiang Xiu to say, it's the order from the sect leader himself. When Qin Qing and the others heard this, their expressions changed greatly. They were so scared that cold sweat broke out on the spot. What was wrong with Jiang Xiu? Why would he say such nonsense? Although Shen Kuan's order to exterminate his own clansmen would arouse the suspicions of the law enforcement elder, it was still better than saying that the sect master had given the order. When he confronted the sect master, it would immediately be exposed. This was simply courting death. However, when the law enforcement elder heard that it was the sect master's order, he was relieved. Although he still had some doubts, he did not suspect Jiang Xiu and the others. Instead, he turned his mind elsewhere. Jiang Xiu seemed to have expected this. His suspicions were immediately cleared. However, in the eyes of Qin Qing and the others, Jiang Xiu's actions were not wise at all. He had simply buried a huge mine for himself. Jiang Xiu said, Elder, the sect leader, he? Oh, don't worry. The law enforcement elder said. Maybe he's not used to the climate here. His body is not important. He will definitely be able to recover before the heavenly worship ceremony. It was not that immortal kings did not get sick. On the contrary, immortal kings getting sick was more terrifying than ordinary people. Immortal kings getting sick also meant that there was a problem with one of their organs. It was very likely that it could not be cured. Jiang Xiu said, that's good. The situation was a bit strange. The Jidao sect was perfectly fine, but they did not see anyone. They had already come, so of course they could not go back. Moreover, the sect's disciples were continuously moving here. The heavenly worship ceremony would definitely be held. After moving in, the heart sect was filled with a boiling cauldron of voices. It was very lively. Jiang Xiu chose a remote place. He did not want to be discovered by others while cultivating. Qin Qing, Zhao Quan, and the others became his neighbors, separated by a courtyard. After Jiang Xiu finished his work, it was already 10 o'clock in the morning. The moonlight outside the window was faint, and a figure flashed by outside. Jiang Xiu was very sharp and sensed that there was only a wall between him and Qin Qing's courtyard. That figure was graceful, curvy, and extremely flexible. It was a woman. A soft voice sounded, "Jiang Xiu. Senior apprentice Sister Qin? Things are a bit strange." She would not come to find Jiang Xiu in the middle of the night for no reason. "Today I went out to meet with a few of my fellow apprentices, and even my master. I heard some news. Ever since they came to the new sect, they have not seen the sect leader. It's possible that the sect leader is seriously ill. Although cultivators could get sick, the probability was very small, especially at the Immortal King level. Normally, they would not get sick unless they reached the end of their lifespan. However, the Jidao sect was still very young." Qin Qing's eyes sparkled under the night sky. She sighed and said, "Could it be that senior apprentice brother Jiang already knew that the sect leader was sick?" Jiang Xiu laughed. "How could I be so godly?" Qin Qing said, "It would be great if the sect leader could not recover from his illness." Although it was a little girl's wish, it truly showed that Qin Qing had no feelings for the sect leader of the Jidao sect, much less revere him. It was not that there were no immortal kings who had died of illness, but she had never heard of any who were found by her side. Jiang Xiu said, "It's possible." Now Jiang Xiu was even more certain that the Jidao sect in front of everyone was not the real one, but a fake one. Although Jiang Xiu did not know what was going on, he was almost certain that this was the main reason why Jiang Xiu dared to directly say that the Jidao sect had ordered the extermination of Shitang when he heard that the Jidao sect was in seclusion. Qin Qing laughed and said, "Senior apprentice brother Jiang is speaking the truth." In this month, Qin Qing rarely saw a smile on her face. Moreover, the way she addressed Jiang Xiu also changed back and forth between senior apprentice brother Jiang and junior apprentice brother Jiang. "I'm taking it seriously." She now greatly admired Jiang Xiu's scheming and strength. Although she was joking, how could she not want to hear Jiang Xiu's affirmation? Jiang Xiu asked. This time, the sect invited all the immortal kings to the heaven worship hall. Qin Qing said, "I heard a few words. Yan Longyue, the corpse god Taoist, Bai Hui swordsman, Lord Diao Daoing Buddha." She said several names in one breath. The Tianqing school's reputation was not small. Jiang Xiu said, "Yan Longyue and the corpse god Taoist will also come?" Qin Qing said, "Yan Longyue came to our Tianqing school before and has a good relationship with the sect leader and the elders. The corpse god Taoist and the former sect leader are good friends." "Good friends?" Jiang Xiu said, "It's getting late. Senior apprentice Sister Qin should also rest early." After Qin Qing left, Jiang Xiu also returned to his home and used his innate magical power. His power was released from his body, and a huge shadow like Jiang Xiu emerged from his house. A pair of eyes looked at the main peak in the distance. Jiang Xiu's courage grew because he was not discovered the last time he spied on the Jidao sect. The huge shadow's eyes flashed with a strange color, and it passed through layer by layer all the way to the main peak. Jiang Xiu looked around the main peak, but it was empty. There was no one at all. "Where is he?" He was greatly surprised. He thought that the Jidao sect everyone saw now was a fake one, but why was he not here? What was this? Jiang Xiu did not understand. If he was not here, how could he come out to see them? No wonder he was sick and did not come out. Just as Jiang Xiu was about to withdraw his gaze, he found that there was a secret room in the main hall. He immediately looked in, and the next scene shocked Jiang Xiu. There was a person tied up in shackles, and his divine soul was locked. Although his hair was disheveled, he could recognize that he was Jidao sect. However, he could not tell whether the clothes he was wearing were real or fake. This discovery made Jiang Xiu's mind even more confused. What the hell was going on? How could Jidao sect be controlled by someone? The Tianqing school's affairs seemed to be more complicated than Jiang Xiu had imagined. Time passed in the blink of an eye, and the new Tianqing school gradually became noisy with the arrival of the disciples and servants. It faintly regained its former glory. On the day of the opening ceremony of the Heaven Worship Sect, 40 to 50,000 people gathered in the square of the Tianqing school's main hall. Although many admitted defeat, the spacious main hall did not seem crowded. Several elders appeared one after another. As for the so-called witnesses, they had also arrived. According to the disciple, those immortal kings had already arrived. It was just that Jiang Xiu had yet to meet them. This time around, the grand opening of the sect was extremely grand. All the elders and peak lords had done their best to invite everyone they could, including several influential characters of the Yan state. Chapter 676. The land of the Yan state was vast and vast. If it wasn't for its size, there wouldn't be such a good piece of land. Jiang Xiu had been here a few times, but he wasn't familiar with it. The power of the major sects wasn't any weaker than the Tianqing school, but there was almost no interaction between them. The closest major sect to this place should be the World Sect. The sect leader of this sect was named Ji Mingsheng, and this sect was extremely famous in the immortal martial continent. Because of their secret art of demarcation, they were ranked number 7 on the immortal martial rankings, 2 ranks higher than the Skywalker mirror. Although the strength of a sect wasn't determined by this, from a certain perspective, it also showed the strength of the World Sect. In the past, the World Sect was not as strong as the Tianqing school. In the past, the Tianqing school was known as the 13 Immortal Kings, and had Jiang Luoxia as its leader. But now, the Tianqing school had lost 3 Immortal Kings including Jiang Luoxia, and its strength was greatly reduced. At most, it was on par with the World Sect. Moreover, the Tianqing school looked impressive on the surface, but in reality, it was full of holes and unstable. It was also the first time it came to this precious land, so it couldn't be compared to the World Sect at all. Other than the World Sect, the other major sects weren't weak either. Moving a sect wasn't such a simple matter. It wasn't as simple as building a sect here and completing the relocation. There were also many problems involved, such as the division of power and the relationship between the neighboring sections. What would others think if a tiger suddenly ran to other people's home? Elder Q-Sword, Elder Q-Sword. Elder Q-Sword was dressed in a formal robe today. His usually scattered hair was neatly put on a crown. His beautiful eyes were clear, and he looked dignified without being angry. His green robe fluttered in the wind, and his steps were steady and powerful. Several disciples followed behind him. Elder Q-Sword was the protector of the Tianqing school. On an occasion like today, he had a heavy responsibility. If anything happened, he would be held accountable. Lu Chongkong also appeared. When he saw Elder Q-Sword, he went to greet him. The two chatted casually. Then Xiaoye also appeared. Several immortal king elders appeared together. Their aura and weight were quite enough. The invited guests, as well as the guests from the major sects of the Yan state, only 1 or 2 came. There wouldn't be too many, or it would be suspected of provocation. Haha, congratulations. A tall man appeared in the main hall. He wore a black robe and had a resolute face. Behind his armrest, wind and clouds followed him as he walked. There was also a crescent moon behind him. The Tianqing school chose a new schoolmaster in less than a year, and even resolutely moved the school. This boldness is truly shocking in the immortal martial continent. I'm ashamed. Falling Dragon Moon. Beside him was a peerless beauty wearing a red cloak. Her hair was combed into a bun, and under the cloak, she wore a green dress. Her steps were light and graceful, like a drifting cloud floating under the moon. In this grand and imposing square, she appeared even more delicate and peerless, graceful and noble. Jiang Xiu was naturally not surprised to see Yan Longyue suddenly appear in the corner, but what surprised him was that the woman beside him was actually Lu Li, who covered the stream. Thinking of all the things that had happened between him and Lu Li, and then looking at her following Yan Longyue, he was keenly aware of something. Today's heaven worship opening hall would not be completed smoothly. Congratulations, congratulations. Lu Li was a junior and did not have the qualifications to say such words. She could only say a word of congratulations. Many thanks. Elder Q-Sword was not good at receiving guests. Xiaoye took over and started chatting with them. A wisp of black smoke swept over from afar. As soon as the black smoke appeared, it should have covered most of the sky. Even the sky seemed to have darkened. What made people feel even more uncomfortable was that the black smoke was so eerie that it made people feel extremely uncomfortable. A terrifying figure then crawled out from the black smoke like a boneless thing wriggling. Hua! The disciples in the square were in an uproar. A cloud of black smoke flew out from within. When it came closer, it could be seen that it was a very common piece of cloth. It fluttered in the wind and finally landed on the ground of the square. Humph! Jiang Xiu snorted coldly and looked at the piece of cloth from the corner of his eyes. Just like a magician performing a magic trick, something emerged from the black cloth that covered the flat body. It was very strange, like a human silhouette. Slowly, a face appeared. It was like a fake face. Its skin was as white as the lime on the wall. Its eyes were triangular and black. Its shoulders were very wide, but its waist and legs were very thin. Corpse God Taoist, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Yin Longyue said when he saw who it was. Yes, we haven't seen each other for a long time. The Corpse God Taoist's voice was very low, and sounded a little scary. However, his eyes avoided Yin Longyue's gaze, as if there was some estrangement. After all, he wanted to forget a disgraceful thing, but when he saw this person, he remembered the past. Corpse God Taoist, welcome. The Corpse God Taoist nodded slightly to them. Speaking of this person, Jiang Xiu had known him for a long time. The Corpse God Taoist was the only person Jiang Xiu could not see or understand, whether in terms of magic power or personality. Because he cultivated the great Tao of death, it was very special. Almost no one would cultivate this great Tao. It was said that after cultivating it, one would not die unless there were external factors. Because death was the end. However, in Jiang Xiu's view, there was no existence that was immortal. He was not really dead. Only when he ceased to exist would he be truly dead. However, he could indeed be said to be dead. There was no vitality in him. Therefore, when some ancient ruins were discovered, he would be included. There were some places that Jiang Xiu and the others could not enter, but there was no harm in him going in. It was useful. Their first encounter was because of this. Later, they gradually interacted more and became friends. Back then, in Jiang Xiu's view, they were gentlemen's friends. They only contacted each other when there was something. They basically did not meet for no reason. When they met, it was to do business. They never sat down to drink and talk about their feelings. In fact, the Corpse God Taoist could not drink. And he was also the only one who refused to exchange blows with Jiang Xiu. One couldn't tell how strong his battle prowess was, but he was indeed a celestial king. Moreover, this person wasn't greedy. Other than things related to the great Tao that he cultivated, he wouldn't want anything else. However, the things that he needed, most of the others wouldn't want. After all, who would collect things like death qi? 60 years ago he participated. Jiang Xiu was actually a little surprised. A living dead like him should be excluded from the living beings of the sixth Tao. He was actually a despicable person who went back on his words. Many disciples had heard of this person for a long time. Now that they caught him alive, they could not help but take a few more looks. I didn't expect you to come today. Yin Longyue seemed a little surprised. The Corpse God Taoist. Tianqing School is moving. Since Ji Daozong has opened his mouth, there is no reason for me not to come. It is not a bad thing to come and take a look. I should come out and take a walk. You are most welcome. The Corpse God Taoist glanced at Xiaoya who spoke. He did not speak, as if he did not like to talk to a stranger. Yin Longyue resolved the awkwardness and asked, "Where is Sect Master Ji? Why don't I see Sect Master Ji at such a grand event?" Jiang Xiu was also curious. If Ji Daozong could not come to such a scene today, then it would be interesting. I heard that Sect Master Ji was not feeling well. Could it be that he has not recovered yet? Xiaoyu was about to speak when he heard the sound of heavenly music. There was finally movement in the direction of the main peak. He saw a guard of honor flying over, constantly condensing petals. Among them was a man in a brocade robe. He was very imposing. He was Tianqing School's sect master, Ji Daozong. When the person approached, everyone in the sect shouted in unison, "Welcome, Sect Master! Welcome, Sect Master!" Today, the Ji Daozong had also carefully dressed up and tidied himself up. He swept his eyes over everyone and slowly said with a smile, "This sect has been feeling a bit unwell recently. Fortunately, I have recovered today. This sect opening ceremony hall is fortunate to have the hard work of all the elders. This sect opening ceremony is very gratified." Of course everyone thanked him. When Ji Daozong was about to walk forward, a female servant reached out to help him. Ji Daozong frowned and said, "Do I need you to help me? Do you think I am an elder?" When Jiang Xiu heard this, a smile appeared on his face. Of course, he knew that this was a fake Ji Daozong. He had been locked up before, but today was the opening ceremony of the sect master Ji Daozong. As the sect master, of course he had to come out and preside over the situation. In front of everyone, Jiang Xiu was a little worried for him. Would he make a mistake and be discovered that he was not Ji Daozong? Chapter 677. In this world, a fake was a fake. Although he looked the same as Ji Daozong, the difference in their abilities was like heaven and earth. However, this fake Ji Daozong wasn't bad. If Jiang Xiu hadn't accidentally discovered that the sword scar on his body had disappeared, he probably wouldn't have discovered it in a short time. He was a fake. Now that he knew the result, it wasn't difficult to see some flaws. Although he had just recovered from a serious illness, his aura didn't diminish. Brother Yanlong, corpse god Taoist, thank you for being able to come during Tianqing School's sacrificial ceremony. Sect Master Jiang is too polite. Tianqing School's relocation is a grand event in the immortal martial continent. Ji Daozong waved his hand and smiled. Everyone is too kind. There's still some time before the sacrificial ceremony. Please help yourselves. Sorry for the lack of hospitality. After saying that, he walked past them and headed to his high seat. But when he passed by Azurite, he stopped and looked at her. Azurite nodded slightly and bowed. Ji Daozong couldn't see her face clearly, but he could see that she was very beautiful. He actually opened his mouth and said, "You are?" Azurite raised her head, and a devastatingly beautiful face appeared in front of everyone. Ji Daozong was shocked, and his eyes lit up. He heard Azurite say gently, "Greetings, Sect Master Ji. This disciple is Sect Master Hua Luiying's disciple. Master is unwell and can't come, so this disciple specially came in his place." How was Hua Luiying physically hugging Yang Feiming? He was crazy. Azurite? Good name. A trace of a smile appeared on Ji Daozong's face as he pointed at Lu Li and said, "Elders, I suddenly feel that he resembles someone." The elders were dumbfounded. Xiaoye said, "Who is Sect Master?" Ji Daozong said, "Can't you see?" Everyone stared at Azurite, making Azurite feel very unnatural. But other than feeling that he looked good, he didn't look like someone. Xiaoye understood tacitly. This elder also has the same feeling. He is somewhat similar to the late sect master's wife. So you can see it too. Ji Daozong was very excited, while Jiang Xiu frowned slightly. This fake sect master was actually a lecher. Jiang Xiu had also seen Jiangxi before. Although she could also be considered a beauty, compared to Lu Li, she was really far away. A mere fake sect master actually planned to use his identity to hunt for beauties. If she was a disciple of a sect, she would most likely be taken down. But Lu Li was Hua Zhejian's disciple. Even if Hua Luiying was crazy, he was no threat. Although Hua Zhejian was at the bottom of a large sect, he was not someone you could casually take over. The law enforcement patriarch frowned. In front of so many guests, in front of so many disciples, he was openly lusting after the beauty of the flower hidden stream's disciple. What kind of scandal was that? Ji Daozong asked, "Where is Shen Kuan? Where is Shen Kuan?" Usually, this kind of thing would be handled by Shen Kuan. The law enforcement elder stood up and said, "Sect Master, you were ill a while ago and did not come out. Therefore, this subordinate did not have time to explain to you. Shen Kuan has met with an accident. During the trip to Xitang, he Liangchuan, and a dozen other disciples were killed." What? Ji Daozong was taken aback. Jiang Xiu noticed that not only was Ji Daozong shocked, but there was also a trace of panic and even fear in his eyes. This was a human subconscious reaction, and could not be fake. How did they die? The law enforcement elder said, "This matter." He paused and said, "Jiang Xiu, where is Jiang Xiu?" His voice was not loud, but it was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. Jiang Xiu slowly walked over to that side. Qin Qing and the others' nerves suddenly tensed up. Their hearts were screaming that they were done for. The first thing they did was to retreat. If the situation was not right, they would retreat immediately. Once they were convicted, they would definitely die. This disciple is here. Jiang Xiu came to the front of the crowd. Azurite sized him up. It had been more than 2 months since they parted at Qingling Mountain, but Jiang Xiu was still the same as before. He was still so indifferent and arrogant. This matter, you explained to the sect master. Not only Azurite, but Yan Longyue's gaze also swept towards Jiang Xiu. At that time, he was invited by Ji Daozong to the Tianqing school to verify the authenticity of Jiang Xiu. Now it seemed that this person was definitely not Jiang Luoxia. Ji Daozong coldly looked at Jiang Xiu, waiting for his explanation. Jiang Xiu was not in a hurry. This disciple was ordered to go to the Shi Tang dynasty to order them to move. The other party refused to cooperate, and according to the sect's rules, their royal family was destroyed. Then, I returned to the sect. As for what they said, Head Shen brought this disciple to the Shi Tang dynasty to rescue. This disciple did not know. His explanation was full of vigor, but it was also full of flaws. Several elders present frowned. Shen Kuan was born in the Shi Tang royal family, and this person was extremely protective of his own people. He took great care of his own descendants, and even doted on them. How could he let a disciple go to exterminate his own people? Not to mention Shen Kuan, most people would not be able to do so. Sure enough, Ji Daozong frowned and coldly stared at Jiang Xiu, wanting to pressure Jiang Xiu. Ridiculous! How strong was Jiang Xiu's heart? Even the real Ji Daozong was defeated by him, let alone a fake. You're saying that you don't know? Jiang Xiu said. Yes, this disciple indeed does not know who persecuted Head Shen and his group. What a joke. This matter had also spread like wildfire within the sect. Jiang Xiu's words were too hard to believe. How could Head Shen let him exterminate his own clan? Unless he was crazy? Who gave the order? Was it Head Shen who personally gave the order for you to exterminate the Shi Tang dynasty? Ji Daozong's eyes were very frightening. Obviously, he felt that this matter was caused by Jiang Xiu. Even if he was not the murderer, he was an accomplice. Jiang Xiu smiled and said, Sect Master, it was you who personally gave the order. You can't have forgotten, right? Ji Daozong was stunned, and Qin Qing and the other souls almost flew out when they heard this. They wondered what this Jiang Xiu wanted to do. He had already bumped into the main character, and he still dared to speak without thinking. Ji Daozong's expression was stunned for a moment, and his eyes flickered. He actually said, All right, look at my memory. If it was the real Ji Daozong, of course he would not admit it. However, the person in front of him was a fake. He did not know whether or not the real Ji Daozong had given the order to Jiang Xiu. He had a guilty conscience and was worried that he would be exposed, so he admitted it. This time everyone was stunned. What? It was the sect master's order? The sect master wanted to exterminate the entire Shi Tang dynasty? Qin Qing and the others were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out. They had thought of thousands of possibilities, but they had never thought of this possibility. What was going on? Could it really be Sect Master Ji's order? Shen Kuan had already caused the Tianqing school to seethe with resentment, so it was hard to guarantee that the sect master would not take action. The other disciples thought too much. It seemed that Sect Master Ji was also very dissatisfied with Shen Kuan. The elders also had a contemplative look on their faces. As for the guests, they looked on coldly from the sidelines. The only other person was Lu Li. Jiang Xiu had left a deep impression on her. Even her master, a celestial king, had been driven crazy by him. She would not be surprised at all if Jiang Xiu took care of anyone. Jiang Xiu said, This disciple was ordered by the sect master to go to Shi Tang and exterminate the Shi Tang imperial family. As for Head Shen, he went to Shi Tang and did not return. This disciple is not sure. If it was really the Ji Daoist sect's order to Jiang Xiu, then the biggest suspect in Shen Kuan's matter was the Ji Daoist sect himself. However, did the Ji Daoist sect need to be so secretive in dealing with Shen Kuan? If the Ji Daoist sect wanted to punish Shen Kuan for his crime, it would be a simple matter. Could it be that they were worried that Shen Kuan's influence in the sect was too great and far-reaching? The fake Ji Daoist sect could only pinch his nose and bear it now. He had become the biggest suspect in Shen Kuan's murder. That's strange. Who killed Shen Kuan? His feeble explanation was more like playing dumb. Some disciples couldn't help but stand up and say, "Sect master, if you killed him, then you killed him. What's wrong with admitting it? You're the sect master. What's wrong with punishing a rebellious disciple? We support you." Shen Kuan was extremely unpopular in the sect, especially after destroying several great empires in succession. He had shaken the relationships of some of the sect's core disciples. Those disciples had masters above them and junior brothers below them. They were not easy to bully. "Sect master, the auspicious hour is almost here. We can worship the heavens now." Chapter 678. Ji Daozong nodded slightly. Under everyone's gaze, he walked towards the altar surrounded by attendants. The disciples of the Tianqing school stood in their respective positions. There were also empty seats. Other than these celestial kings, there were also some sects that had close ties with the Tianqing school. However, none of the sects from the Yan state had arrived yet. It seemed that none of the sects took the initiative to welcome them. They had said that they would come at the time, but they would only appear after the Tianqing school's ceremony. This was called paying respect to the peak of the mountain. The peak of the mountain had not been erected yet, so why should they pay respect to it? A disciple who specialized in sacrificial ceremonies walked to the side of the large cauldron and read out loud the prayer that he had prepared for the heavens. The language was not the current language of the immortal martial continent. It was like an ancient language. It was very old and could only be learned after putting in a lot of effort. The content was nothing more than words of thanks to the heavens. That was the meaning, but the prayer could not be finished in a short time. It was noon, and the sky was misty. Under the sunlight, there was a layer of light, and it was full of a holy and auspicious aura. After more than an hour, that person finally finished reading. Ji Daozong took the lead and knelt down, kowtowing to the heavens. "Since I took charge of the Tianqing school, I have conquered the north and south, opened up new territory, and strengthened the sect. Now the sect is growing stronger day by day, and the old site of the sect can no longer bear the fate of the sect. I have specially moved the sect to the Yan state, so that the disciples of the Tianqing school can live and work here in peace. I have created a prosperous era for the Tianqing school, and thousands of sects will pay respect to it." The disciples of the Tianqing school below felt disgusted when they heard this. "I know that many people in the sect are not convinced, and have come to find trouble with me. However, whether I am right or wrong, the disciples of the Tianqing school have no right to judge." Ever since Ji Daozong took over the Tianqing school, the situation had been turbulent and people were resentful. Part of it was because of Shen Kuan, but the main culprit was Ji Daozong. "There are many people who think that I'm selfish and muddle-headed. They think that I don't care about the future of my disciples and only care about myself, which brings harm to the sect. Privately, they say that I'm muddle-headed. I'm not here to defend myself. I just want you all to understand that the development of the Sky Motion sect has reached a bottleneck. It's impossible for us to become stronger. How many years have passed? How many sect masters have worked hard? Everyone has seen the result. There's no progress at all. If I want to have a breakthrough, I have to break through to the immortal Emperor realm to bring the Sky Motion sect to another height." Everyone's expression changed when they heard this. They hadn't expected Ji Daozong to say such a thing. Many disciples agreed with him. Ji Daozong's thoughts weren't wrong. Many people even had a change of opinion about this sect master. Jiang Xiu sneered in his heart. At the same time, a strange feeling welled up in his heart. If it was the real Ji Daozong who said such words, Jiang Xiu wouldn't feel strange at all. However, it was a fake Ji Daozong who said such words. Jiang Xiu couldn't help but wonder if Ji Daozong was the one who said it himself, or the one who controlled him made him say it. Humph. A cold snort sounded. This cold snort was very clear in the silent ceremony. It was clearly transmitted into the ears of everyone present. It was very ear-piercing and very disrespectful. Everyone looked over. They didn't expect it to be someone from the Tianqing school, the law-enforcing elder Xiaoshan. This cold snort was too loud. Ji Daozong couldn't pretend that he didn't hear it. He could only say with a cold face, "Does the law-enforcing elder have any opinions? You have to pay attention to your words and actions. This is the heaven-worshipping ceremony." The law-enforcing elder stepped forward. "This is the heaven-worshipping ceremony hall. All the disciples of the sect are here, so Sect Master Ji can't distort the facts and talk nonsense here." Oh, Ji Daozong stopped. "How can I distort the facts and talk nonsense?" The guests who had come to watch the ceremony originally didn't have the slightest bit of energy. As a result, they became excited all of a sudden. The exciting show was coming. In the distant mountains, a group of unfamiliar people stood on the platform and watched everything that was happening. When one of the men saw this scene, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Any sect, especially a sect with a long history, has complicated internal relationships. It won't be easy for the Ji Daozong to complete such an important move. The follower behind him said, "Elder, it seems that we don't need to do anything. I'm afraid that the Tianqing school will fall into chaos first." "Ha ha ha," the man said. "After Jiang Luoxia's death, the Tianqing school's fate has come to an end. This is my Fangjie sect's opportunity, and also my Yen state's opportunity. Not everyone can get a foot in this land. Whoever wants to get a foot in will have to bear the consequences." The heaven-worshipping hall of the new sect was illuminated by the fiery red maple forest in the distance. It was like a dazzling mountain and sky composition, attracting people's attention. The law enforcement elder's face was solemn. "You said that everything you did was for the sake of the sect's breakthrough. This is simply ridiculous." Over the years, which sect master didn't want to break through to the immortal emperor realm? Was it the previous sect master who didn't want to, or the previous sect master who didn't want to? The answer was no. Before Jiang Luoxia's accident, he also tried his best to become an immortal emperor. But there has never been a sect master who sacrificed the interests of the disciples and took all the disciples' resources for himself. This is simply selfish. You used the name of the sect master to act like a hooligan and act like a hegemon. If you were really thinking about the development of the Tianqing school, you would be even more stupid. Everyone knows that the disciples are the future of the sect. If the sect wants to pass on, it must cultivate the disciples. Instead, you took the disciples' resources and stifled their development. This is undoubtedly killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. Every word was sonorous and forceful. The disciples below whispered softly. They were almost fooled by the Ji Daozong just now. The disciples were simple. They only wanted the sect masters to be good, to be right, and to care about them and the sect. In fact, they didn't want their sect master to be a selfish person. The resentment of the past, the suppressed anger, and the responsibility of the law enforcement elder were all evoked. The resentment and anger of hundreds of thousands of people were so terrifying. When the officials forced the people to rebel, the people had no choice but to rebel. A trace of fear flashed across the fake Ji Daozong's face. He could feel the change in the mood of the disciples below. The most terrible thing for a long time was to be stirred up by others. He wasn't a mediocre person. He suppressed his panic and said, "Precisely because of this, none of the previous sect masters could do it. None of them advanced to the immortal emperor realm." The law enforcement elder said angrily, "You're twisting words and forcing logic. Looking at the entire immortal martial academy, how many immortal emperors are there? How many people have seen an immortal emperor? Almost all of them exist in legends. I, Xiashan, have lived for almost 10,000 years and have never seen an immortal emperor. This isn't because the resources of the previous sect masters were too little. It's because it's too difficult to take that step. It requires a lot of luck. Since the founding ancestor, our Tianqing school hasn't produced an immortal emperor for more than 10 years because of this reason. Who wouldn't want to become an immortal emperor? Even the insignificant disciples of the immortal martial continent had such a dream. The corpse god Daoist, the elder of the world sect in the distant mountains, or anyone else in the immortal martial continent, weren't they all bitterly searching for the path to becoming an immortal emperor? Who would go to such extreme lengths to harm their own disciples? Ji Daozong said, "Why should I explain to mediocre people like you? The world is drunk, and I'm the only one who's sober." Xiaoshan, because you're an old official of the sect, I entrusted you with an important task. You were in charge of the Tianqing school's laws, but you openly violated them. Do you really think I don't dare to remove your position as the law enforcement elder? As the sect master, Ji Daozong naturally had this right. The law enforcement elder's face was cold, and he didn't budge an inch. He had made up his mind to not let Ji Daozong complete the ceremony today. Xiaoshan, in front of so many Tianqing school disciples and guests, I officially remove you from your position as the law enforcement elder. From this moment on, you are no longer the law enforcement elder of the Tianqing school. Hua. The crowd finally couldn't help but burst into an uproar. On the day of the ceremony, he was publicly attacked. If Ji Daozong didn't make a strong statement, then a second or third person would jump out. Xiaoshan laughed loudly. You want to remove me? I've been the sect master for 3 generations, and I've been the sect master of the Tianqing school for nearly 5,000 years. Elders, I think it's inappropriate for Ji Daozong to be the sect master of the Tianqing school. I'm going to activate the 6 soldiers' armor removal. Chapter 679. They had finally reached this step. At this moment, Jiang Xiu thought that these people had been waiting for a long time. When the Ji Daozong still had the support of the Taihua sect, they didn't dare to act rashly. Now that the Ji Daozong and the Taihua sect had broken off their relationship, they no longer had any scruples. They had been waiting for a long time to pull the Ji Daozong down. The Ji Daozong shouted, You dare to rebel? Xiaoshan snorted coldly and turned to face the Tianqing school's elders, peak leaders, and disciples. Our Tianqing school has an ancestral rule. If a sect leader loses the support of the people, or is not capable enough, the 6 soldiers can be used to remove him. Ever since the Ji Daozong took over as the Tianqing school's leader, he didn't think of repaying his debts. Instead, he took away the resources of the disciples for his own use, and allowed his disciple Shun Kuan to do whatever he wanted. Does anyone have any objections to the 6 soldiers' removal? The disciples in the hall understood the current situation. The law enforcement elder was going to rebel. He was really going to rebel. The Ji Daozong was too unpopular. Although he had some loyal followers, they couldn't stop the 6 soldiers' removal. Elder Q-Sword stood up and said loudly, Q-Sword Peak agrees. You. The Ji Daozong's face turned pale. Supreme Sparrow also stood up. Immortal Medicine Peak agrees. Hua. The hall was in an uproar. Elder Daofu stood up and said, Daofu Peak agrees. For elders, a total of 4 elders. Haha. The elder of the world sect laughed uproariously as he mocked Qin Wentian. However, this was truly the greatest scandal under the heavens. Although there were many immortal martial sects, it was extremely rare for a sect leader to step down from his position. This was especially so for major sections. If such a situation occurred, that sect could be said to be finished. Laughable, extremely laughable. Qingzhou Tianqing School is the biggest joke in the world. The person behind him shook his head, expressing his helplessness. We don't even need to do anything. They'll play themselves to death. Lu Chongkong walked out and said, I also agree. 5. Ji Daozong was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Disciples of the Tianqing school, listen up. These people are plotting to rebel and subvert our Tianqing school. Every Tianqing disciple is proud of this. Kill them. Boom. A loud sound rang out, and the sky above the main hall shook violently. The disciples quickly retreated outside, and they saw that the ground in the direction of the altar was cracking, revealing a huge array diagram. Not good. Jiang Xiu's expression changed. In his previous life, he had also put in a lot of effort into array formations. At a glance, he could tell that this was the sect-guarding array of Tianqing school. The 9 heavens recorded the chaos tribulation. Even immortal kings would find it difficult to escape if they fell into it. Tianqing school had used this array to kill immortal kings several times. Retreat. Someone shouted. Ji Daozong also made a prompt decision to fly away. Attack! Elder Q-Sword shouted angrily, and the sword in his hand shot out quickly. At the same time, Wushang Sparrow, Elder of Law Enforcement, Elder of Dao Talisman, and Lu Chongkong also responded and attacked. The 5 immortal kings attacked together. The scene was spectacular. The sword light was dazzling, and the sword chi was everywhere. The surrounding void could not withstand it, and the terrifying sword silk cut through the void like glass. They all shot towards Ji Daozong. The scene made the elders of the distant sects frown. If it were them, they probably would not be able to escape. Tianqing School's rebellion was still plotting. So many elders had already gathered. Ji Daozong was really not doing well. What? Everyone was shocked by the next scene. Ji Daozong actually used some kind of secret technique to escape from the sword light that filled the sky. So strong, as expected of the Tianqing School's head. Jiang Xiu was even more surprised. This fake Ji Daozong actually had such strength. Elder Q Sword and the others were anxious. If they did not take advantage of the chaos to kill Ji Daozong today, there would be endless trouble in the future. Don't let him escape. Once he escaped from the formation, it would be difficult to kill this immortal king. Moreover, the other elders present had not expressed their opinions. If they stood on Ji Daozong's side, the situation would be completely out of control. From then on, Tianqing School might split, and at that time Ji Daozong would not be a sect. Such examples were not rare in the immortal martial continent. At this moment, a sword light came from the horizon from extremely far away, and with a swoosh it slashed down. The sword light was incomparably sharp. Ji Daozong, who was about to escape, suddenly flipped his sword, and the sword light responded. With a boom, a powerful force collided. Ji Daozong had originally acted hastily, not to mention that he was not the real Ji Daozong. He was actually forced back into the formation. At the same time, the formation eye on the ground exploded. Dazzling rays of light shot up from the ground, like heavenly swords piercing the sky. The formation had completely exploded. Ah! Ji Daozong cried out in heart-wrenching pain. The space inside the formation was surging and twisting, and his vision was not complete. Who set up the formation? Jiang Xiu thought inwardly. In the Tianqing School, only 2 people knew how to record the chaos tribulation of the 9 heavens. One was the peak master of the formation peak, the formation elder, and the other was the sect master himself. Ji Daozong was overseen by the formation elder. Then the answer was obvious. Sacred Azure Sky. Ji Daozong screamed in pain inside the formation. You dare to harm me? A figure flew over from the horizon, much faster than the sharp sword. He landed with a bang, his body full of sword chi, and the formation under his feet shining with golden light. The person who came had a head of gray hair. Ji Daozong, I also agree. Within the formation the endless void was twisting, and the turbulence was surging. It was as if a heavenly tribulation had descended, extremely cruel. No, don't kill me, don't, Ji Daozong screamed in heart-wrenching pain. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but sigh. The dignified sect master had fallen to such a state. Sacred Azure Sky's expression was cold. No immortal king can escape after being hit by the chaos tribulation of the 9 heavens. Ji Daozong, today is the day of your death. I'll use your death to wash away the shame you've brought to Tianqing School all these years. Elder Q Sword agreed. Well said. Ji Daozong had married a disciple of the Taihua sect, causing Tianqing School to lose face and suffer ridicule. They had enough of this. The prestige and dignity of Tianqing School had been lost because of him. Today, they would use his blood to wash away this shame. Chi. The inside of the formation became dusky and surging. The inside of the formation could no longer be seen clearly as it was being abused by the energy. Only Ji Daozong's miserable screams could be vaguely heard from inside. With a bang, a cloud of smoke appeared inside, and the miserable screams disappeared. Dead, Sacred Azure Sky said. The chaos tribulation of the 9 heavens is decisive. No living things are allowed. The cloud of smoke inside was still surging. Jiang Xiu seemed to see the explosion of the water lightning. It was said that the power of the water lightning was not because of the power of the explosion, but because of the vacuum created by the explosion. The cloud of smoke inside the formation was like this. A little of Ji Daozong's flesh and blood was brought out by the cloud of smoke, but it was soon completely suppressed into nothingness. Dead, he's finally dead. Ha ha ha. The sudden change happened so quickly that no one could react in time. An immortal king of a generation, the sect master of Tianqing school, Ji Daozong, died just like that. The eyes of the distant sect elder narrowed into a line. Tianqing school's chaos tribulation of the 9 heavens is really powerful. I'm afraid that if I fell into it, I would end up like Ji Daozong. However, Ji Daozong bowed. The elders of Tianqing school were all against moving the sect. It seems like Tianqing school will retreat to Tianqing mountain range. Lan Longyue said softly. This is much more exciting than the heaven worship ceremony. Lu Li sighed. Another immortal king had fallen. Compared to her master, his fate was a bit more straightforward. Sometimes living was more painful than death. The law enforcement elder said, the Jidao sect caused a great deal of trouble, forcing the sect's imperial court to relocate. The people were filled with resentment, but now everything has returned to the right track. The Heaven Motion sect cannot move. That is our homeland, the foundation of our bloodline. Right, we cannot move. There were 3 other elders, Xiaoye, Qiliandian and Shan Ko. The 3 of them were silent and looked on coldly. However, most of the elders had reached a consensus. Ji Daozong was already dead. This decision could not be changed. However, Qiliandian opened his mouth and said coldly, Elders, the 6 soldiers' armor removal did not open just now. The Jidao sect is still our sect master. If you rashly kill him, I'm afraid it's an act of rebellion. Law enforcement elder, I don't know what crime this is. Chapter 680. Of course, the traitor was a death sentence. However, wasn't the strength of the traitor a little too strong? Just now, there were 6 elders who had joined forces to kill the Jidao sect. If Qiliandian wanted to hold them accountable, wouldn't that mean that the 6 elders would be executed? Xia Shun stared at Qiliandian and said, Elder Qi, what do you mean by this? You should be able to see that the Jidao sect refused to launch the 6 soldiers' disarming armor in an attempt to provoke a civil war within the sect. At this time, if we don't make a move, are we going to let the civil war break out? Qiliandian said. In this elder's opinion, it was you who conspired to judge first. Do you think that all the disciples of my Tianqing school are fools? If it wasn't for the large amount of resources and the long-term investment, it wouldn't have been possible to arrange it. Don't tell me you want to say that this formation wasn't set up in advance? Everyone could see that this was a premeditated rebellion. The law enforcement elder said. It's just in case. I didn't expect it to come in handy. If it wasn't for Elder Sheng Qingtian setting up this formation in advance, the consequences would be unimaginable. In the Sky Motion sect, the people who benefited from the Jidao sect were still loyal to him. They were not loyal, but they were loyal to the benefits that the Jidao sect gave them. Now that the sect master had changed, their benefits would not be the same as before. In order to protect their own interests, if the Jidao sect hadn't died under the formation, they would have already started a war. Rebellion is rebellion. This is an indisputable fact. Qiliandian's words were simple, but they went straight to the point. Indeed, no one could deny this. However, the law enforcement elder and the others were already in power. Qiliandian could no longer shake them. The law enforcement elder said, Elder Qi, things have come to this. For the sake of the sect, let's discuss this matter in the future. Ha ha ha, Qiliandian said. You openly disobeyed your superiors. Just like that, you're dreaming. The 6 elders furrowed their brows. Then what do you want? These 6 great immortal kings stood on this side. If they were willing to reason with you, they would use violence to suppress you. In the current situation, they would never let the situation change. Suddenly, the hall became strangely quiet. It was as if even the wind had stopped. In the distance, a person slowly walked over. Seeing this person, everyone's eyes popped out. Elder of Law Enforcement, Elder Q Sword, Lu Chongkong Wushang Sparrow, Elder Dao Talisman, and Sheng Qingtian were dumbfounded. That man walked over step by step in a domineering manner. The sound of every step he took was very heavy, fiercely pounding on their hearts. You all seem to be very surprised to see me. How are you still alive? Elder Q-Sword looked at Ji Daozong for a long time before saying this. This was also the question in everyone's heart. The elders were also shocked. Yan Longyue and the corpse god Taoist were also confused. Just now, they clearly saw that Ji Daozong had died under the formation. If he had escaped, it would have been impossible to hide from their eyes. Greetings, Sect Master. Greetings, Sect Master. The disciples of Ji Daozong knelt down and saluted. Tens of thousands of people knelt down and shouted. The scene was so grand that it felt as if the sky was being overturned by the waves. No, impossible. Sheng Qingtian kept shaking his head. You can't be alive. Why are you still alive? Ji Daozong walked step by step to his sect master's throne. With a wave of his cloak, he immediately sat down. Why? Ha ha ha. Because that person just now was a fake, only a substitute for me. Substitute? There was such a play? Do you think that I don't know what you're doing behind my back? You think I'm so stupid and incompetent? Elder Q-Sword and the other's expression became very ugly. Jiang Xiu also guessed that this person should be a substitute for Ji Daozong. His confession during the sacrifice was made by the person controlling him. It was very similar to Ji Daozong's explanation. Jiang Xiu had already guessed that this person was arranged by Ji Daozong. Ji Daozong said, "Now what else do you have to say? Offending your superiors is a crime punishable by death." Enforcement Elder, Q-Sword Elder, Q-Sword Elder Lu Chongkong, Supreme Sparrow, Dao Fu Elder and Sheng Qingtian. Tell me how I should punish the six of you. The real Ji Daozong was indeed different. His aura was much stronger than the fake one. The six people's expressions were very ugly. Enforcement Elder said, "Humph, Ji Daozong, you don't need to be arrogant here. You've caused Tianxing School's dignity to be swept to the ground, and the sect is in turmoil. This crime is unforgivable. We will use the 6 soldiers to remove you from your position as sect master and convict you." Sheng Qingtian said, "Enforcement Elder is right. If you didn't show up, we would have been fooled by you. But you still came back." Ji Daozong coldly looked at them. These people could topple the fake Ji Daozong and force the real Ji Daozong into a dead end, but he looked very calm. "Ha ha ha. You're really confident," Ji Daozong said. "If I wasn't confident, I wouldn't dare to show up here." Sheng Qingtian said, "Confidence? What confidence do you have? In the past, you relied on Taihua sect, and were willing to be their dog. Now that you've lost this master of Taihua sect, you've turned against them. What confidence do you have?" Ji Daozong said, "You're right. My sect does rely on Taihua sect. My sect can only rely on Taihua sect." "What?" Ji Daozong pointed into the distance. Everyone looked over and saw a person. From her graceful figure, it could be seen that she was a woman. She wore a crown on her head, and her skirt was 5 or 6 meters long. She walked over leisurely, and her charm was outstanding. Oh God! When they saw the woman, not only the elders and disciples, everyone, including Jiang Xiu, were stupefied. They were stupefied, their eyes and mouths wide open. What's going on? It was actually Ji Daozong's wife, Jiangxi. Boom. Many people's minds went blank. They couldn't see anything and couldn't hear anything. They only saw Madame Ji slowly walking over. Ji Daozong stood up and took her hand, bringing her to his side. Jiangxi smiled faintly. "What, it's only been a while. Don't tell me you don't recognize me anymore? What the hell?" Jiang Xiu was the most shocked. He saw Jiangxi being killed by 4 immortal kings. How was she still alive? Behind Jiangxi, the sky was densely packed with flying boats with the flags of the Taihua sect. The people of the Taihua sect had arrived. Dumbfounded, completely dumbfounded. Yu, Elder of Law Enforcement, and the others were speechless. Ji Daozong said, "Ever since I ascended to the position of sect master, there were many people in the sect who were dissatisfied with me. When I decided to move the sect, I knew that your patience had reached its limit, and that you would definitely make a move. Thus, I began to plan from then on. Of course, Madam didn't die. The battle at the Heaven Motion sect was just a show. Don't tell me that none of you have ever wondered how our sect could possibly have the treasure of Taihua sect." The elders glared at Ji Daozong. They felt a chill in their hearts. Ji Daozong had already dug a hole for them to jump into, but they didn't know anything about it. The disciples finally understood that all of this was part of Ji Daozong's plan. Madame Ji wasn't dead at all. Ji Daozong's relationship with Taihua sect had never been severed. Everything was to confuse Elder Q-Sword and Elder of Law Enforcement until they thought the time was right. Then they would take the moral high ground and deal with this group of people. No matter how tyrannical the Ji Dao sect was, he was still the sect leader, a supremacy. There was no reason for him to offend his superiors. Not only the Sky Motion sect, but the entire immortal martial continent as well. This was a great taboo that even the heavens would not tolerate. I didn't expect Ji Daozong to be so shrewd. I really underestimated him. Elder Feng Jie's expression became serious. Ji Daozong's methods and schemes made him, a bystander, feel afraid. Ji Daozong will be a formidable opponent in the future. Yes, Elder Feng Jie said. Ji Daozong is already so terrifying. Back then, Jiang Luoxia suppressed him. How terrifying is Jiang Luoxia? The person behind him laughed. Unfortunately, Jiang Luoxia is already dead. Chapter 681. The current situation was also a helpless choice for the Ji Dao sect. He was not the rightful sect master, and the elders of the sect were very against him marrying a female disciple of the Taihua sect. The disciples were also the same, but if he did not rely on the Taihua sect, he would not even be able to ascend to the position of sect master. No matter what he did, there would always be a powerful force in the sect that opposed him. This was something that his predecessor had never faced. He knew that unless he cut off all ties with the Taihua sect, but without the Taihua sect, his position as sect master would not be guaranteed. In such a situation, he could only eliminate the resistance in the sect. It was difficult to dig out these people, but even more difficult to eliminate them. Therefore, he decided to move the sect, wiping out these people's patience and pushing them to a dead end. It was an accident that Jiang Shi was ambushed when he returned to the sect. However, even Shen Kuan had a life-saving talisman. Under such circumstances, how could Jiang Shi not make sufficient preparations when he returned to the sect? It's the illuminating Yin lantern. Jiang Xiu remembered that Jiang Shi's death was very strange at that time. Unfortunately, his cultivation was low at that time, and he did not think about it carefully. Because all of this happened suddenly, and the Ji Dao sect and Taihua sect were rushing over. Their attention was attracted by their pursuit. Next, the Ji Dao sect and Taihua sect played along. Although Jiang Shi's ambush was an accident, and those people would have directly attacked the Ji Dao sect, this did not affect the plan. A battle for revenge broke out. Under such circumstances, the Ji Dao sect and Taihua sect turned against each other. No one would suspect that there was a trap. No one. The Taihua sect took the opportunity to kill a few elders that Jiang Shitua did not want to let live. Jiang Xiu had messed up the entire situation. He had survived and messed things up, causing the death of a person from the Heaven Motion sect. The Ji Dao sect did not want him to die, but he had no choice but to die. Tang Tian, the situation had gone out of control. They had not found the culprit, and they had no choice but to start a war in advance. They had no choice but to kill Li Jiuyang, who knew that he had plotted to kill Jiang Luo back then. Because the three of them were together back then, since Tang Tian knew, the elders would definitely know, and so would Li Jiuyang. If he revealed that Jiang Luo was killed by them, the consequences would be irreversible. Although there were some surprises, the progress of the situation was still under control. After he fell out with the Taihua sect, he lost his biggest support. If he gave up on moving the sect, he might be able to keep his position as the sect leader and slowly work his way up. But how could he give up? The opposing forces were still there, so he was basically moving the sect. However, he knew that his situation was very dangerous. As the saying went, a gentleman would not stand under a collapsing wall. Thus, he found a substitute. However, it was difficult to find a substitute. Appearance was secondary. The most important thing was cultivation. It was not so easy to disguise as a celestial king. Thus, he could only rely on his father-in-law, Jiang Shitua. Elder Q-Sword's eyes flashed. He looked at the Ji Dao sect, who was speaking frankly with assurance. At this moment, he naturally understood that while they were scheming against the Jidao sect, the Jidao sect was also scheming against them. If it wasn't for Jiang Xiu telling him to make a move against Jiang Shi, they would have fallen into the trap set by the Jidao sect and the Taihua sect. A person who could climb to the position of sect leader and have the support of the Taihua sect was definitely not stupid. However, they thought too highly of themselves and saw the Jidao sect as prey. They thought that they were the hunters, but they did not know that they were also the prey of the other party. How could such a selfish person like the Jidao sect care about the strength and comfort of the sect? He wanted the throne of the Tianqing school's sect leader, and the wealth accumulated by the ancestors of the Tianqing school for tens of thousands of years. Elder Q Sword said, "So the Jidao sect in the Tianqing school wasn't you at all?" Jidao sect slowly said, "That was an elder of the Taihua sect. He took charge of the Tianqing school on behalf of this sect. His loyalty and bravery are commendable. He is not comparable to you traitors. Unfortunately, I didn't think that you would hate him so much that you would directly kill him." Humph. The veins on the back of Elder Q Sword's hand bulged. Not only was the Jidao sect scheming against them, but he was also able to accurately control their thoughts. Elder Q Sword felt as if he had been stripped naked. Under the gaze of the Jidao sect, there was nowhere to hide. This feeling made Elder Q Sword feel both powerless and angry. The disciples below were also shocked when they heard this. It turned out that the upper echelon of the sect was so dangerous and cruel. Enforcement Elder, Elder Q Sword, Elder Lu Chongkong, Supreme Sparrow, Elder Dao Fu, and Sheng Qing Tian. This sect considers that you are all old officials of the sect and have contributed greatly to the sect. Although you have rebelled against your superiors, this sect won't kill you all. Jidao sect's face was incomparably dignified. His eyes flashed with a terrifying light. This sect will now give you all a chance. Bow your heads and admit your sins and be eternally banished to the immortal extermination pagoda. As for your descendants, this sect can forgive them. The 6 elders trembled when they heard this. Sheng Qing Tian laughed loudly and said, "Ji Daozong, you really boast shamelessly. Have you forgotten that we have 6 immortal kings on our side? Although you have more people than us, how many of us can you stop if we want to leave?" On the Jidao sect's side, including the 3 elders, Madame Ji had 5 people. There was also Yan Longyue and the corpse god Taoist, making 7 people here. There were also the densely packed Taihua sect in the sky, 9 immortal kings, making a total of 16. 16 to 6. If this were to happen, the most likely outcome would be that 3 of Elder Q Sword's side would die and the other 3 would escape. Jidao sect had long since prepared for this, and might have other methods. If this were to happen, the situation would be even worse. Jidao sect, you colluded with outsiders to murder an elder of the sect. You are the one guilty of the most heinous crimes. Elder Q Sword looked at Xiaoye, Qiliandian and Shanko. He said loudly, "Xiaoye, Qiliandian, Shanko, 3 elders, you are all elders of the Tianqing school. Are you going to act as accomplices to a villain like this?" Xiaoye, Qiliandian, and Shanko looked indifferently at Elder Q Sword. Rebellion was already a fact. Although Jidao sect wasn't a good sect leader, he was a traitor. Apart from their own people, no one else would support them as traitors and traitors. 3 elders, do you remember sect leader Jiang? Why did a generation's pride fall? Do you remember Tang Tian's words? Jidao sect is the murderer of sect leader Jiang. He is the true traitor. Jiang Xiu's lips moved slightly when he heard this. This sentence had touched him. There were 6 of them. If these 3 elders leaned over, then all the elders of the Tianqing school would betray Jidao sect. What influence would he have in the sect? 13 to 9, then everything would be different. Lan Longyue and the corpse god Taoist were the icing on the cake. They could sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' work, but how could they really fight with their lives on the line? They weren't that stupid. If it was 13 to 9, then they would have to reconsider. 11 to 9. If such a situation really happened, then it would be easy for everyone to say. Elder Q Sword said excitedly, "The 3 of you, the murderer of sect leader Jiang is here. If we get rid of Jidao sect, we can avenge sect leader Jiang and revive Tianqing school." Ji Dao sect has harmed our Tianxing school and caused internal strife within the sect. Don't tell me you are still so stubborn? Can't you see the situation clearly? It's him. He colluded with other sects to murder his own fellow sect member. The three of them didn't say a word. Seeing that Elder Q-Sword wasn't convinced, the law enforcement elder also said loudly, "Who was the one who spread the news of Sect Master Zhang's death? It was the Ji Dao sect, Li Jiuyang and Tang Tian." Tang Tian almost revealed the truth on the day of the riot, and was killed by the Ji Dao sect. If that riot was a trap, then Li Jiuyang's death wouldn't be so simple. The three of you. He's simply silencing everyone who knew about it back then. Speaking of this, Lan Longyue and the corpse god Daoist's faces flashed with a trace of surprise. They were participants, so of course they knew what had happened. At this moment, a person with disheveled hair slowly walked out of the crowd. Everyone looked at him. They couldn't see his face clearly, but he gave off a familiar feeling. His body was emitting anger, and his whole body was trembling slightly. Who is it? When Jiang Xiu saw who it was, his originally relaxed expression suddenly froze. He whispered involuntarily, "Jianyi." Chapter 682. When everyone saw Jianyi, they were all inexplicably surprised. His hair was disheveled, and his slightly raised face was full of scars. However, the outline of his facial features was the same as before, but his face was full of sadness and anger. Jianyi. Elder Q-Sword's face changed, and his expression was a little unnatural. "You didn't expect me to be alive, did you?" Jianyi grinned. The scars all over his face made him look very ferocious, and his voice was even more low and terrifying. Although his tone was still calm, everyone could feel the hysterical hatred under his calmness. The Jianyi in front of Jiang Xiu felt strange. In the past, Jianyi was free and easy, white and clean. But now he was neither a human nor a ghost. He was full of hostility, as if he had just climbed out of hell. It was hard to imagine what he had experienced all these years. "You must be very disappointed and surprised," Jianyi said jokingly. "This is nothing compared to your current situation. The plot you have painstakingly planned has collapsed in an instant. You must be frightened and angry in your heart." Indeed, Elder Q-Sword's current situation was really very bad. Jianyi's anger slowly emerged on his face, and his whole person became very violent. "But isn't it too despicable and shameless to use my master's death to save the situation?" Everyone present knew who Jianyi was. He was the disciple of the former Lord Jiang Luoxia. This might not be enough to shock people. The reason why it caused such a big sensation was that Jiang Luoxia's lineage had been wiped out in the sect in just a few decades, and Jianyi was the only survivor now. His appearance might reveal the truth of Jiang Luoxia's lineage being persecuted. But now Jianyi pointed directly at Elder Q-Sword. Elder Q-Sword said, "Could it be that this elder is wrong?" Jianyi said, "Whether you are wrong or not, I don't know. But I saw with my own eyes that you killed my fellow apprentices, tricked them out of the sect on the pretext of a mission, and assassinated them. If it weren't for my luck, I would have died in your hands." The muscles under Elder Q-Sword's eyes twitched. Jiang Luoxia's people had been killed in such a short period of time. Of course, someone had deliberately done this, but many people thought that it was the Ji Dao sect. It turned out that the Ji Dao sect was the scapegoat. "You persecuted the loyal followers left behind by my master, and now you want to use my master's death to absolve yourself. In your dreams." Jianyi roared crazily at the word wishful thinking. "Even if I die, I won't let you have your way." Images of his senior and junior brothers and sisters who had been killed appeared in his mind. This scene was like a poisonous snake devouring him, causing his face to contort as if he had gone mad. The monstrous hatred on his body could be felt from afar. "Elders, if you succeed in today's matter and successfully kill the Ji Dao sect, then who will take the position of sect master? If I'm not wrong, it will be Elder Q-Sword." The elders present did not say anything, but it could be seen from their expressions that it should be so. Jiang Xiu's eyes turned cold. His own disciples and forces had actually been uprooted by Elder Qianjian. Apart from Jiang Luoxia, Elder Qianjian should have been the strongest person in the Celestial Motion sect. This person was very possessive and ambitious. Back then, when Jiang Xiu and the Ji Dao sect were fighting, Elder Qianjian didn't mind, even though he was already ranked third. It seemed that this person had not given up from the beginning to the end. When the Ji Dao sect was in power, he had caused a lot of trouble. However, the Ji Dao sect was also courting death. Both of them were not good people. However, Elder Q Sword still wanted to use the Ji Dao sect to plot against Jiang Luoxia, provoking the anger of the other three elders and pulling them to his side. This made Jian Yi's emotions completely collapse. He would never allow Elder Q Sword to use Jiang Luoxia's death for his own benefit, not to mention that they were absolutely irreconcilable enemies. Elder Q Sword, is what he said true? Elder of Law Enforcement looked at Elder Q Sword with anger in his eyes. Lu Chongkong Wushang Sparrow, Elder Dao Fu, Sheng Qingtian, and the others around them were the same. They realized that they might have been used. They had been deceived by Elder Q Sword's words about the righteousness and justice of the sect. He had made a solemn vow, but in fact, it was all because of his inner desire and ambition. He had long coveted the position of sect master. Is this related to the current situation? At this time, you still care about the words of a monster. The Ji Dao sect master is the real culprit behind Jiang Luoxia's death. Although there is no concrete evidence, you all saw him kill Tang Tian with your own eyes. Then, he killed Li Jiuyang as well. He is the real traitor of the sect. The anger in the eyes of Elder of Law Enforcement and the others turned into helplessness. Although Elder Q Sword was deceiving them, they also wanted to eradicate the Ji Dao sect. They were not that loyal to Jiang Luoxia. Their true loyalty might be to the Tianqing school or themselves. If they didn't have such thoughts, with their intelligence and ability, how could they be persuaded by a person with just a few words? However, if it wasn't for Elder Q Sword's persecution of Jiang Luoxia's branch back then, Jianyi wouldn't have come out to expose Elder Q Sword's true colors. He wanted revenge. He wanted Elder Q Sword dead. This resentment was so strong that it made people worried. They couldn't imagine what Elder Q Sword had done to Jiang Luoxia's branch and Jianyi's branch. In short, they were going to be tricked to death by Elder Q Sword. Elder Q Sword opened his mouth and said, Xiaoya, Qilian Dian Shanko. Although this elder wants to seize fame and fortune and ostracize sect leader Zhang's old subordinates, that was also for resources. I am loyal to the Tianqing school, and have never harmed the interests of the sect. The one who truly persecuted the sect and brought the sect to its current state is him and Ji Dao sect master. If it wasn't for him murdering sect leader Jiang, he is the real traitor. It was really hard to choose. It was like a young lady about to get married. She had to choose between two men, but both were scum. It was just that one was worse than the other. Ha ha ha. Ji Dao sect master laughed loudly. You say that this sect harmed sect leader Jiang, but do you have proof? If you don't, then it's slander. Do you think everyone in this world is as stupid as you? They believe you with just a few words. Xiaoya, Qiliandian and Shanko were all silent. Of course, they wouldn't be persuaded by Elder Q Sword. Originally, there was still a sliver of hope, but after Jian Yi's appearance exposed Elder Q Sword's true colors, this sliver of hope was cut off. Elder Q Sword felt that the situation wasn't good. Ji Dao sect master's eyes gradually turned cold. This sect has changed its mind. The other 5 elders are guilty and will be detained by the law. You are the instigator of the rebellion and must die. He shouted sternly. Capture him for this sect. Elder Q Sword shouted almost at the same time. Everyone, let's attack together and kill Ji Dao sect master immediately. Only by killing him can we live. The funny thing was that Elder Q Sword was shouting so fiercely, but he immediately prepared to fly away. His goal was nothing more than to let someone buy him some time. You want to leave? It's not that easy. Jian Yi's figure was like a ghost as he chased after Elder Q Sword. He would rather die than let him escape. Jiang Xiu saw this and his heart clenched. Jian Yi was a great celestial immortal. His injuries were so serious that even his walking was a bit deformed. It was too dangerous to rashly ask Elder Q Sword, an immortal king. However, his hatred for Elder Q Sword had reached the point where he would rather die than drag him down with him. Shanko snorted coldly. A light flashed in his hand and a bow appeared. In the blink of an eye, 3 arrows flew out without hesitation. The arrows seemed to have spiritual energy. They turned into 3 rays of light and intertwined in the void. Their speed was much faster than that of the flying sword. Moreover, they seemed to be under the control of the feathers. This elder will give you more power. Qi Liandian swung his hand, and the original arrow was covered with silver lightning. With a sizzling sound, the arrow's speed suddenly increased. Xiaoya's body was like a ghost. He moved later but arrived first. He actually approached Elder Q-Sword's side faster than an arrow. His speed was truly astonishing. He saw Elder Q-Sword swinging his slender hand at Sword 1. A gigantic palm that could penetrate the heavens and penetrate the earth was pushed out. Xiaoya also met the attack with his own palm. A gale burst forth, and the sky fell and the earth cracked. Chapter 683. Elder Q-Sword's palm suddenly expanded to 100 zhang in the blink of an eye. It shone with golden light, and contained an incomparably heavy and terrifying power. The clouds in the sky couldn't bear the pressure and surged away. Even the void was cracking under the pressure. Jian, on the other hand, crashed headfirst into it. The skin and flesh on his face rippled like waves in the wind. His eyes were filled with golden light, and that terrifying palm with incomparable heat. He knew that he might die in the next moment. However, if he could delay Elder Q-Sword's escape time, even if it was just 1,000th of a second, the meaning of his life was to make Elder Q-Sword pay the price. Even if he died in the next moment, he would die with no regrets. Master! Jian roared. The word master contained countless emotions. It was longing, regret, and resentment. Why did you have to be harmed and leave us behind? Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with a fierce light. So fast. The elder of the world sect in the distant mountain couldn't help but whisper. Xiaoya's speed was unimaginably fast. He actually caught up with Elder Q-Sword in an instant. This scene shocked many people. To be able to make an immortal king exclaim. His speed was naturally incomparably shocking. Elder Q-Sword was running for his life, so he must have used all his strength. However, he was caught up in an instant. This explosive power was really terrifying. Can he make it in time? Xiaoya's palm actually arrived in front of Jian. In the blink of an eye, it also expanded to 100 palms. The same dazzling golden light came from the same sect, and the same secret technique. Boom. The 2 palms heavily clapped together. The golden light in the sky constantly flashed. When it finally reached its peak, it finally exploded. It felt like the explosion of a planet in the sky. Huff. Jiang Xiu let out a long breath. He had saved Jian. Back off. Xiaoya coldly glanced at Jian and said in a commanding tone. Humph. Elder Q-Sword roared. In the explosion of light, the golden light suddenly gathered at a spot and then disappeared. A sharp sword flew out from it. It was so fast that it couldn't be seen clearly. One could only see that the explosion of light was forcibly cut open a ray of light in the void. All of Elder Q-Sword's cultivation was focused on his sword. Xiaoya was already at a disadvantage from the palm strike just now, so he had no chance of winning against Q-Sword's sword. Xiaoya's eyes were slightly cold, but he suddenly stopped his body. He waved his right hand in the air, and a white light appeared, forming a light film. The long sword had already collided with the light film. Bang bang bang. The light film was under an indescribable pressure, and it began to crack inch by inch. His long hair suddenly shook, and the membrane of light exploded. It was precisely hard steel. He was not Elder Q-Sword's opponent, but he did not panic, because the 3 arrows behind him had already arrived. He pulled sword 1 and flew backward. The arrows whizzed past them from behind. 2. Perhaps Q-Sword Elder wanted to say that Yi Shiwen was just a chicken or a dog, but his words stopped abruptly. Q-Sword Elder's vision turned pitch black as a white light flashed through his mind. Soul attack. Jiang Xiu's expression changed slightly. The soul attack could directly affect Elder Q-Sword Elder's body. In the Tianqing school, of course, there were a few people who had this ability. The only one who could succeed in one move was probably Ji Daozong. However, he was only injured. The moment his soul was attacked, he temporarily lost consciousness. Perhaps this time was very short, But it was right when the 3 arrows were shot. Ji Daozong must have calculated the time. One of the arrows collided with the sword light, but the other 2 slipped through the air. Poochie poochie. The arrows pierced Elder Q Sword Elder's body, and blood spurted out. Elder Q Sword Elder's mind instantly went blank, and his eyes emitted a terrible white light. When he woke up again, his face was twisted in pain. He could have held on even if he was seriously injured. However, the moment he was hit by the arrows, he was numb. His whole body was numb, and it was the blessing of the red lightning secret technique. His whole body fell vertically from the sky, like a bird shot by a slingshot. Everything happened too fast. It happened in an instant, and it ended in an instant. Elder. Jianyi saw Elder Q Sword Elder fall from the sky, and his eyes widened in disbelief. In the end, he opened his mouth and wanted to laugh, but he couldn't think of anything. What flowed out were tears. Even if he killed Elder Q Sword Elder, his martial brothers and sisters wouldn't come back. With a bang, Elder Q Sword Elder fell heavily on the ground. His whole body had a terrible blue electric current flowing through it. He was dying, but his eyes were wide open in anger. Why didn't you attack? Why? He was blaming the other 5 elders until he died. If they attacked just now, he could have escaped, but the elders weren't fools. They wouldn't be fooled by one person. If you didn't attack, you would all die, all of you. It was now 16 against 5. Elder Q Sword Elder was a living example of what the result of 4 against 1 was like. You could deal with 1, but you couldn't deal with 4. Elder Q Sword Elder kept spitting out black blood. His soul was injured and his body was seriously injured. He couldn't hold on for much longer. Although he was hateful, the other 5 elders felt cold. If Elder Q Sword Elder died, what about them? The Ji Daozong wouldn't let them go. They weren't people who put their lives in the hands of others. If the Ji Daozong wanted to control the Tianqing school completely, he wouldn't let those who opposed him live. Even if they survived, they would become cripples and be restrained by the Ji Daozong forever. You lost? The Ji Daozong looked down at Elder Q Sword Elder, his voice arrogant and high-spirited. Today he would be the winner. Other than Elder Q Sword, all the other elders who disobeyed him were convicted. From then on, no one in the Celestial Motion sect would dare to oppose him. He would become the true head of the Celestial Motion sect. He would be the sole ruler of the Celestial Motion sect. Elder Q Sword Elder's eyes were dull. The winner was the king, and the loser was the bandit. What about you? Do you want to live or die? Throughout the history of the immortal martial continent, only he, the Ji Daozong, had dared to say such words in front of 5 immortal martial experts. He had enough confidence. 16 immortal kings. How astonishing was that? The elder from the Jia sect on the distant mountain frowned. I didn't expect that the Tianqing school's internal strife would be quelled by the Ji Daozong. This person really has some tricks up his sleeve. Seeing that they didn't answer, the Ji Daozong didn't force them. He passed through the crowd and stepped onto the altar. Just now, because he had triggered the Great Formation, everything inside had been destroyed. Not even the remains of the fake Ji Daozong's corpse could be found. Step by step, he ascended the heavenly altar. He turned around, his cloak fluttering in the wind. He was in high spirits. His eyes flashed like lightning, and he looked very imposing. Now who else dares to stop me from opening the heavenly sect? The people below were all silent. Elder Q Sword Elder had many disciples, but at this moment, none of them dared to make a sound. If they didn't make a sound, they wouldn't be punished for the same crime. At this moment, if they squeaked, they would be courting death. The other 5 elders who were strongly against moving the Tianqing school could only sigh. If it weren't for the Taihua sect, they wouldn't be afraid of the Ji Daozong at all. But now, not only did the Taihua sect have so many immortal kings, but they also invited 2 immortal kings. The difference in strength was too great. Today they couldn't stop the Tianqing school from moving. If not, then let's start the heavenly sacrifice ceremony. But at this moment, a voice rang out. Ji Daozong, do you think you still have the qualifications to be the Tianqing school's sect master? Ji Daozong felt that he already had everything under control. Unexpectedly, someone dared to scheme against him and question him. His complacent face instantly turned into anger. However, he couldn't tell where the voice came from. He roared angrily. Who dares to question me? Come out! You killed Tang Tian to silence him. And then you killed Li Juyang to silence him. Do you think you can forget what happened at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain 60 years ago? When he heard the other party mention the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, Ji Daozong's expression changed even more. Initially he didn't care much, but now his face stiffened. Not only him, but even Yan Longyue, the corpse god Taoist, and Jiang Shitua, the sect master of the Taihua sect, who was on the flying boat, all changed their expressions. Although they weren't afraid, they always felt guilty as thieves. They didn't like to talk about unbearable things. Chapter 684. Back then, Jiang Luoxia had suddenly disappeared, and the Ji Daozong had confirmed his death. This matter had naturally caused a huge uproar in the immortal martial continent. Jiang Luoxia's death was strange, and the cause of his death could not be found, so it gradually became an unsolved case. Until today, many people could not figure out how Jiang Luoxia could have killed him with his cultivation at that time. Who are you? The voice continued. Ji Daozong Lan Longyue, corpse god Taoist Jiang Shitua. Do you think this matter can be covered in dust and never appear in the world? Jian Yi's gaze was also searching. Who is it? Did this person know the truth of that year? A group of treacherous villains. Hearing the words treacherous, Ji Daozong felt a fierce blow to his heart. He roared angrily, Who are you? The faces of the other three participants also turned cold. When this person mentioned the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, it was possible that it was an unfounded speculation based on the fact that the Ji Daozong had killed Tang Tian, Li Juyang, and the others to silence them. However, to be able to say the words treacherous, it was completely different. It was very likely that he knew the inside story. If he did not know, he definitely would not have said those words. The voice sounded again. Back then, everyone thought that sect master Jiang was in seclusion somewhere. Sometimes, at the Immortal King level, it was normal for seclusion to take a few decades. However, you said that sect master Jiang had disappeared. Why are you the only one who knows? Because you killed sect master Jiang. If you did not kill him, how did you know that sect master Jiang had disappeared and was not in seclusion somewhere? Ji Daozong, what qualifications do you have to be the sect master of the Tianqing school? You are a traitor of the Tianqing school, a traitor who should be punished by everyone. The several elders present looked at each other, especially Xiao Ye, Qi Liandian, and Shan Ko. Their decision had a huge impact on the overall situation. If the three of them identified the Ji Daozong as a traitor, then almost all the elders of the Tianqing school would stand on the opposite side. At that time, who would support the Ji Daozong? Even if he had the support of Taihua sect and other external forces, he would still become the enemy of Tianqing school. Ji Daozong also knew that the reason why Yan Longyue and the corpse god Taoist were willing to help him was largely because they were also involved in the murder of Jiang Luoxia. If this matter was exposed, the people of Tianqing school would naturally see them as enemies. Everyone in the huge Tianqing school was afraid of them, especially these Immortal King elders. Therefore, they were willing to cooperate with the Ji Dao sect to kill and cripple these people. Only by getting rid of these people would they feel at ease. They wouldn't be afraid of exposing the fact that they had killed Jiang Luoxia. Ji Daozong asked, Who are you? He raised his hand, and a talisman light burst out. It emitted a strange sound wave power, which spread out into the distance. The crowd dodged this power one after another. Finally, it landed on the body of a handsome man. It's you. Their gazes fell on him. Jiang Xiao. The power of the talisman caused his long hair to flutter, and his clothes to flutter. However, his face was still so cold and indifferent. How could it be you? The elders and the people present were very surprised. Lu Li, who was in the crowd, revealed a strange expression. Then she frowned. She saw Jiang Xiao as a friend and a benefactor. Seeing him stand out and challenge the authority of the Ji Dao sect, she felt that something was wrong. Even the elders were helpless, and a disciple like him came out to cause trouble. Wasn't this looking for death? Jianyi also looked at this person and felt that his aura and appearance were very similar to his master. Ji Daozong narrowed his eyes. This Jiang Xiu, whom he had always looked down on, was an ant. He could kill him however he wanted, but how did he know so much about the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Moreover, this person had many unsolvable mysteries. For example, how did he know the mnemonic chant? At that time, after Madame Ji and Jiang Shi were heavily injured, they had to recuperate for a while. When they woke up, they asked Jiang Shi. At that time, it was Elder Qianjian who made the move, and not Tang Tian. Clearly, Jiang Xiu had slandered Tang Tian. Initially, Ji Daozong thought that Jiang Xiu could be arranged by Elder Qianjian. Now, it seemed that this was not the case. He knew more about the Heavenly Emperor Mountain than Elder Qianjian. If Elder Qianjian knew about the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, he could have already made Ji Daozong step down. Ji Daozong said with a gloomy face, "Jiang Xiu, you are hiding the head and showing the tail. You still say some slanderous words about me. What are your intentions?" Jiang Xiu smiled coldly. "Slanderous? Since you know Tang Tian was wrongly accused and did not kill Madame, then why did you kill him? Are you not silencing him? Why did Lan Longyue and the corpse god help you? It's because you are in cahoots," Ji Daozong said. "These are your words. Anyone can say them." Jiang Xiu said, "Then let's not talk about this for now. As the schoolmaster, you colluded with outsiders and used external forces to interfere with the internal affairs of the Tianqing school. You did not allow the elders to activate the 6 soldiers' disarming armor and cause internal strife. This is enough to remove you from the position of schoolmaster." That was true. Ji Daozong's crimes were monstrous, but there was no other way. The other party's fist was harder than yours. Everyone in the Tianqing school could see clearly, but they did not dare to say it. Of course, Jiang Xiu did not say this for Ji Daozong to hear. His gaze turned to Xiaoya, Qi Liandian, and Shan Ko. 3 elders, can you still not see through it? Have you thought about what kind of situation the Tianqing school will be after today? The expressions of the 3 elders changed. The remaining 5 elders will be imprisoned forever. Only 3 of the 13 immortal kings will remain. When that time comes, will the Tianqing school still dare to call itself a major sect? It will be fragmented and become scattered sand. Do you still hope that Ji Daozong can bring the Tianqing school back to its peak? The 3 elders' faces changed again and again. Indeed, after the internal strife, the Tianqing school would not be able to rise again. Moreover, as long as Ji Daozong was in power, they would be suppressed by Taihua sect. Moreover, Ji Daozong, Jiang Shitua, and the others might be the culprits who murdered Jiang Luoxia. The expressions on their faces became more and more strange, especially Xiaoya. Although the remaining 5 elders were also suspected of being rebellious, they were indeed instigated by Elder Q Sword. Their starting point was also for the good of the Tianqing school. Nonsense, bewitching people's hearts. I think you're courting death. As soon as he finished speaking, Ji Daozong chanted an incantation. As he raised his sleeve, a violent gust of wind blew out, turning into a gloomy force that rushed toward Jiang Xiu. The power of an immortal king was extremely powerful. In the eyes of the Tianqing school, Jiang Xiu was just an ordinary disciple. Moreover, his natal artifact was broken. He couldn't withstand a blow from an immortal king at all. "Jiang Ge," Luli cried out. She really wanted to help Jiang Xiu, but in the face of the power of an immortal king, she was really powerless. She sighed secretly in her heart. Jiang Xiu was too impulsive. Since he could plot to drive her master crazy, he should also be able to deal with Ji Daozong. Why was he so impatient? Qin Qing and the others were already dumbfounded. They really didn't understand why Jiang Xiu would stand up against Ji Daozong. Although they also hated Ji Daozong, they couldn't joke about their own lives. Although you were a great celestial god and could crush a great celestial immortal, in front of an immortal king, you could only bow your head. You might not even be able to withstand a blow from an immortal king. Seeing the surging power, Jiang Xiu frowned. However, a figure blurred, and a figure appeared in front of Jiang Xiu. The figure raised his hand, and a light shield appeared. The fierce power of the evil wind collided with the light shield, and it was like a flame rushing on top of it. It was incomparably dazzling, and it continued to resist. "Xiaoya, what are you doing?" Ji Daozong's face was terrifyingly gloomy. "Could it be that you really want to rebel?" Xiaoya began to say, "He's just an ordinary disciple and hasn't committed any major crimes. Why does the sect master want to kill him? Could it be that what he said is true?" Ji Daozong said, "Xiaoya, what do you mean by this? This person offended the sect master. Could it be that he can't be killed?" Xiaoya said, "Offended the sect master?" Everyone present saw that what he said wasn't completely offensive. It was more like a question. "May I ask the sect master, can you answer his question? Also, help us from the Tianqing school to clear up the doubts. Does sect master Zhang's death have anything to do with you?" Chapter 685. Jiang Xiu's unexpected appearance, and questioning whether Ji Daozong was the culprit behind Jiang Luoxia's death, had caused the situation to change again. If Ji Daozong was convicted of treason, everything would be reversed. To deal with the crime of treason, elder of law enforcement, and the others were not treason. Instead, they were eradicating evil and cleaning up the emperor's side. Moreover, Jiang Xiu's words were conclusive. He could even name all the participants present. This was very fatal. It was equivalent to exposing Ji Daozong's brother. He definitely could not let Jiang Xiu continue. When Ji Daozong and Xiaoya attacked, the feeling was different. Immortal cultivators were competitive. Especially at this moment, a majestic killing intent rose on Ji Daozong's face. The power in his hand suddenly surged again. With a sizzling sound, countless tiny lightning bolts immediately appeared in the void in front of his palm. A purple glow appeared on Xiaoya's face, but it immediately turned pale. He hurriedly pulled his hand back, and saw the cracks on the rain barrier in front of him suddenly explode. If he did not react quickly enough, he might have been sent flying. Even so, his body still trembled for a while, and he only managed to stabilize his body after forming a seal with his hands. At the same time, a white airflow swept out from Xiaoya's body. The airflow blurred behind him, and Jiang Xiu, who was behind him, turned into two faint shadows in the void. Then they disappeared without a trace. Humph! Ji Daozong's power rushed over without any hindrance, crossing several miles in the sky. The mountain peak in the distance suffered a heavy blow with a loud bang. Then one could see fragments of the ancient times rolling down continuously. The entire mountain peak was actually split open and destroyed. Ji Daozong's power made the onlookers dumbfounded. So strong! Everyone knew about Jiang Luoxia, but they did not know that there was Ji Daozong. This cultivation was far from what an ordinary immortal king could compare to. Although he had been oppressing people all these years, the accumulation of large amounts of resources still allowed him to make great progress. Tianqing school really lives up to its reputation. The elder of Fangjie sect on the distant mountain said. Xiaoya's speed shocked him, and now Ji Daozong's power was also shocking. It's just a casual spell. An immortal king couldn't even block it twice. To think that it still has such great power. Ji Daozong angrily rebuked. Don't try to sow discord here. I won't allow you to slander me. Jiang Xiu's indifferent voice emerged. Heavenly Emperor Mountain, Heavenly Emperor Tomb. Ji Daozong, you dare to say that I'm slandering you? When Ji Daozong heard the three words Celestial Emperor's Tomb, his expression changed drastically again. If you dare to talk nonsense again, don't blame me for being merciless. Suddenly, a terrifying light burst out from his eyes. He glanced over and saw two black silhouettes. The elders Jiang Shitua, Yin Longyue, and the corpse god Daoist were all silent, their expressions uncertain. Come out! Ji Daozong roared angrily. In a flash, a green light fiercely shone out, and the two black silhouettes were cast on the ground. They sneered and raised one hand. A force of more than 10,000 pounds surged and shook the entire void. With a slight convergence, the power of an immortal king surged out and suddenly rushed out. Xiaoya's brows furrowed slightly. As he formed a seal with his hand and pointed at the void, he began to mutter. Immediately, a clear thunderclap sounded from his body. His figure that had turned into a dark shadow appeared, and a vast amount of energy surged out. Sect Master Ji, are you not letting Jiang Xiu finish his words? After the two forces collided, Xiaoya's eyes turned cold. The long sword in his hand trembled. Amidst the buzzing sounds, a dazzling sword technique surged out. The sword light flashed and sword chi filled the air. Ji Daozong's power was too strong. It directly crushed the power of his first attack. However, when the sword technique attacked, it suddenly exploded and turned into flames that splashed in all directions. Ji Daozong made one move, Xiaoya made two moves. Not to mention the difference in power, the consumption of spiritual power was not on the same level. Xiaoya, if you protect him, you will only throw your life away. Xiaoya said, It's not that I want to protect him, but I want to know the truth. I want to know the truth of Sect Master Jiang's strange death. Jiang Xiu's voice continued. The first jump in the Celestial Emperor's tomb leads to death, but the second jump leads to life. That's why we agreed that Sect Master Jiang should jump first. This time, Ji Daozong and the others could not stay calm. Who are you? Who the hell are you? Ji Daozong crazily roared. He didn't hold back anymore. White sand filled the air behind him and gradually condensed into a mysterious rune. Then this rune issued a terrifying beast roar. It was like a tiger's roar or a dragon's roar. Suddenly, a dense storm of energy rushed forward. After a short pause, this beast's roar turned into an ancient curse. It was very urgent. Just listening to it made one's heart feel like it was going to explode. Not good. It's the celestial reflection. The 9th Emperor level secret technique of the celestial martial record. Elder Xiaoya. Seeing this, Qiliandian and Shan Ko frowned. Ji Daozong's full strength attack was not something Xiaoya could withstand, but it seemed like he wanted to protect that little brat. Jiang Xiu's voice became hurried. Everyone agreed that after Sect Master Jiang dies, we will throw him into the Celestial Emperor's tomb and let him obtain the Celestial Emperor's tomb and revive. Shut up, shut up. Jiang Xiu had no intention of stopping. However, after Sect Master Jiang's death, Ji Daozong betrayed us. Together with Tang Tian and Li Jiuyang, they prevented Sect Master Jiang from being thrown into the Celestial Emperor's tomb to revive. Die. Ji Daozong's eyes were red and his face was ferocious. He had never taken Jiang Xiu seriously. He regarded him as an ant on the ground. If he wanted him to live, he would live. If he wanted him to die, he would die. Who would have thought that today he would give him such a fierce counterattack? It revealed the thing he was most afraid of. Crimson lightning came in waves. Xiaoya's entire body turned silver like a rock, filled with a terrifying and pitiful aura. Dense electric arc spiritual patterns appeared on his body. His speed was also very shocking. In a flash, the scene in front of him changed. He had already rushed to Xiaoya's side, and Xiaoya struck out with a loud bang. On the other side, Shan Ko chanted incantations to the extreme. Countless fine arrows rushed out from behind him like a school of fish under the sea. He was a special case in the Tianqing school. He was also a weirdo. When everyone was cultivating, he felt that although the sword technique was powerful, it was not the fastest in terms of speed. In the end, he spent most of his time on arrows and finally became an immortal king. The sound of breaking air resounded. The sky was filled with dazzling lights. 2 streaks of light, one silver and one black, arrived one after the other. In the strong light, they simultaneously added magic power to Xiaoya. The green robe on Xiaoya's body suddenly swelled. It was 3 against 1. The moment the powers came into contact with each other, the powers of the runes suppressed each other and burst forth. One by one, the runes trembled in the void and rippled out strong spiritual patterns. Sounds of earth-shattering power, like the roars of ancient beasts, resounded. At this moment, it was as if a monster that had been sealed for countless years had awakened. Endless roars. Boom. When the power finally reached its peak, it exploded. Rings of light exploded from inside. You dare to rebel against this sect? The Ji Daozong was shaken to the point of retreating. The 3 elders opposite him, Xiaoya, Qiliandian, and Shan Ko, were also shaken to the point of retreating. From the situation, it seemed that the 2 sides were evenly matched. The elder of the Jie sect finally lost his calm. 1 against 3, this Ji Daozong is indeed a character. At this time, the elder of law enforcement said, If what Jiang Xiu said is true, then Ji Daozong, you are the murderer of sect leader Jiang. You are a traitor who usurped the position of sect leader. You are the true traitor of the Tian immortal sect. You are no longer the sect leader of my Tianxing school. Sheng Qingtian echoed. That's right, you are the true traitor. The Ji Daozong said, slander, all of this is slander. You believe what he says? This sect will also say that you killed Jiang Luoxia, or that it was you. Where is the evidence? Where is the evidence? Indeed, it was all one side's words. The Ji Daozong would not admit it, and the other immortal kings would not admit it either. Xiaoye said, that year, although sect leader Jiang did not tell us when he went out, there were people who saw him in Song province. Jiang Luoxia and his two subordinates, as well as corpse god Daoist Yin Longyue, Shui Wuyao, Hua Luiying, and your Ji Daozong Li Jiuyang and Tang Tian. It seemed that Xiaoye had spent a lot of time investigating this matter. Chapter 686. Xiaoye questioned. You said that what Jiang Xiu said was not true. Then why did you, Tang Tian, Li Jiuyang, and sect leader Jiang appear together at Songzhou's Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Why did you come back, but sect leader Jiang did not? And many years later, you told us that sect leader Jiang was missing. Even now you still dare to say that sect leader Jiang's death has nothing to do with you? That year, why did you, Tang Tian, and Li Jiuyang go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? And how did you meet sect leader Jiang? Don't tell me it was a coincidence. This kind of lie can't even fool a 3-year-old child. Now I'll give you a chance to explain. Ji Daozong's face was ashen, and his expression was abnormally terrifying. He said coldly, Xiaoye, don't try to confuse us. When did I appear together with sect leader Jiang at Songzhou's Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Until now, we still don't know where sect leader Jiang was killed. And you and the person behind you revealed that sect leader Jiang was killed at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain's Heavenly Emperor tomb. I want to ask, how did you know? Everyone at the scene revealed a strange expression when they heard this. Jiang Luoxia always did things his own way, and never told them his whereabouts. Therefore, after he disappeared and died, no one knew where he died. Jiang Luoxia's death had always been an unsolved case. Ji Daozong stared at Xiaoye like a poisonous snake and said slowly, then it can only mean that you are the mole who colluded with outsiders to frame sect leader Jiang. All the disciples at the scene were in an uproar. The elders' expressions also changed. They were all shocked. Xiaoye, on the other hand, had a cold expression. He frowned and said, you forgot what position I hold in the sect. Everything that goes in and out needs to go through me. His position in Tianxing school was a bit like the Minister of Inner Affairs. Back then, he was also responsible for repairing Jiang Luoxia's grave. I'm very clear about who used the flying boat, who received what, or who appeared in which affiliated sect and reimburse what. Xiaoye said, sect leader Jiang is a cultivator, but for a period of time before the incident, sect leader Jiang didn't cultivate at night and only went to sleep very late. The number of candles he used was more than what he had used in the past few years. One night, I saw that the sect leader's hall was still lit, and wanted to persuade him to go to bed early. However, when I entered the hall, I found that there was no one inside. Sect leader had temporarily left. I saw that the long table was filled with ancient books, as if he was flipping through them. There was even a piece of calligraphy that only had 3 words on it. Which 3 words? Xiaoye said, Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Suzerain Jiang was reading information about the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Then he went on a long journey. Then, it's not hard for me to guess that he went to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Everyone fell silent. After hearing Xiaoye's explanation, everyone's doubts were dispelled. Xiaoye said, sect leader Jiang had been gone for more than 30 years. One day, you told us that the sect leader had gone missing. I think you must have thought that it was time to seize the position of sect leader, and proposed to recommend a new sect leader in advance. This matter is of great importance. Previously, I suspected that the sect leader had gone to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Thus I made a trip myself. The result proved that my suspicions were correct. Indeed, sect leader Jiang had gone to the Tsang State. He had also invested heavily in a courtesan at the Tsang State flower shop, and caused a great sensation there. Then I went to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain several times to investigate. Finally, one day, I found out that you guys had gathered at a town outside the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. You, Tang Tian, Li Juyang were among them, Xiaoya said. What else do you have to say now? The people below also started to discuss among themselves. If Ji Daozong had truly been with the sect leader in the past, yet he had not mentioned it. Now he had flatly denied it. Then he would be highly suspicious. The expression on Ji Daozong's face turned somewhat unsightly. He truly did not expect that Xiaoya had investigated so deeply and had found such evidence. Xiaoya, you are too good at making up stories. Even if you are sure that sect leader Jiang had gone to the Tsang state and the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, it does not mean that I had also been there. Just because you said someone had seen me near the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Ridiculous. I even said that someone had seen you appear at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain with sect leader Jiang. He would endure it even if he was beaten to death. Once he admitted it, he would not be able to explain it clearly. Xiaoya did not expect that Ji Daozong would be this shameless. For this matter, he had investigated it thoroughly. He had verified it again and again with the witnesses. Ji Daozong was highly suspicious. Words are not proof. Again, where is the evidence, unless you have the evidence? Xiaoya's complexion alternated between green and white. If he had the evidence, he would have already pulled down this traitor from the throne of the sect leader. There was no need to wait until now to expose it. It's best not to speak nonsense without evidence. Especially when you are doubting me. Although it was a pity for the Ji Dao sect, there was no evidence. If it was just speculation, even if everyone present was unwilling, there was nothing they could do. Even if someone jumped out and shouted that he was the one who killed sect master Jiang, it was useless. It was all speculation. Some things must have concrete evidence. However, at this moment a voice emerged. Who said there is no evidence? Everyone's gaze was attracted as the crowd moved aside. Finally, they saw a beautiful woman with a pale complexion and unfocused gaze standing in the distance. It's you. Yan Longyue, the corpse god Taoist, Jiang Shitua, and Ji Daozong all changed their expression. When Luli saw this person, she opened her eyes wide in disbelief. Ma's teacher. The person who had come was Hua Luiying, the sect leader of the Hua Hidden Stream. Only at this moment, she appeared to have lost her soul, and did not have the slightest of her former graceful bearing. Hua Luiying. Ji Daozong opened his eyes wide, and revealed an unprecedented panic expression. Jiang Xiu snorted coldly. This woman's forbearance and scheming were just as he had expected. He glanced at her indifferently. Teacher, why are you here? Hua Luiying ignored Luli and walked towards the center of the scene. She said, Who said there is no evidence? I am the biggest witness. Ji Daozong, you are one of the real murderers who caused Jiang Luoxia's death. Other than him, there is also Tang Tian Li Juyang, me, Yan Longyue, the corpse god Taoist, and Jiang Shitua who died in Tianqing school. Wow. Concrete evidence. This time it was concrete evidence. There was no better evidence than the confession of the murderer back then. Ji Daozong, what do you have to say now? Ji Daozong's face stiffened and twitched uncontrollably a few times. His eyes stared even more frighteningly than Tao Wu's, and his breathing became hurried. He stared at Hua Luiying and said, Why, what good would it do you to say it? Why did you have to say it? By the end of his sentence, he was screaming like a madman. Hua Luiying sneered. Her barefaced face revealed endless sorrow. Her gaze was completely unfocused, as if she had lost her soul. Why? She suddenly screamed. I also want to know why. I am a dignified celestial king, but my cultivation is now crippled. Not only did I lose the sect master's throne, but I also became the sect's sinner and notorious. Why must I bear all this while you murderers can live so freely and happily? You tell me why? What happened back then was done by us together. Why should I bear all the responsibility alone? Shouldn't we bear all the responsibility together? Ji Daozong looked at this woman who was no longer as elegant as before, and had become extreme. She couldn't control her emotions and shouted angrily, You lunatic, you lunatic. Hua Luiying's gaze became very frightening. Lunatic? Yes, I am a lunatic. But even if I am a lunatic, I will drag you all down with me. There is no reason for me to bear all the responsibility alone. Yen Longyue, the corpse god Taoist, Jiang Shitua, and the others all had strange expressions on their faces. On the surface they were still very calm, but on the inside, they were a little afraid. This was equivalent to confirming that they were all Jiang Luoxia's murderers. They had formed a grudge with the entire Tianxing school, and some of Jiang Luoxia's true close friends, especially Yen Longyue and the corpse god Taoist. They might not be able to survive in their original circle of friends. Who would want to be friends with a despicable person who would stab people in the back? Did they have a death wish? Chapter 687. Hua Luiying's appearance confirmed that the Ji Daozong was the culprit behind Jiang Luo's murder. He had no way to defend himself. There were a total of 8 elders from the Tianxing sect, as well as many peak masters, countless disciples, and even his direct disciples, all looked at him with hostility and disdain. Conspiring to murder the school head, and conspiring to take the throne was a great crime. He had already lost the hearts of the people at Tianxing school. At this time, whoever still followed him would be considered a traitor. Elder Ji sternly scolded, "Ji Daozong, what do you have to say now?" Ji Daozong suddenly laughed strangely. His laughter was so savage and unrestrained. "Then what are you going to do? What can you do to this sect? Unrepentant?" The law enforcement elder also said, "Ji Dao sect, your fake identity has been exposed. You are no longer the sect leader of the Celestial Motion sect. No, you were never the sect leader of the Celestial Motion sect. Now, do you think those people you found before will still help you? Will they risk their lives against Tianxing school for a worthless person?" The current comparison was 13-8. Although there was still a gap, Elder Ji was right. Ji Daozong was the murderer of the former school head, Jiang Luoxia. He had already lost Tianxing school. Without Tianxing school, Ji Daozong was the enemy of the entire Tianxing school. Who would risk their lives for a worthless person? "No, Ji Daozong, you're finished." Jianni roared, "Ji Daozong, today, you will pay for my master's blood with blood." At this moment, Ji Daozong was already deserted in their eyes. However, Ji Daozong was surprisingly calm. He coldly swept his gaze over the crowd and shook his head as if he was disdainful of everyone's intelligence. He even made a tisk-tsk sound. "You're all too naive. You seem to have forgotten one thing. I am the school head of Tianxing school. I have the secrets of the entire school. Don't they want this?" Sheng Qingtian cursed, "Despicable." Ji Daozong coldly smiled and said, "Also, don't forget that aside from being the sect master of the Sky Motion sect, I'm also the son-in-law of the Tai Hua sect. Adding on my cultivation, how could the Tai Hua sect ignore me? 13-8. You have no chance of winning. You will all lose." Indeed, Ji Daozong alone could deal with 3 celestial kings. Above him was Jiang Shitua, whose strength was even above Ji Daozong's. Moreover, Yen Longyue was also a supreme cultivator, and the corpse god Taoist was even more unfathomable. Tianxing school had no chance against them. The people of Tianxing school gradually fell silent. Things were not good. The current situation was a huge disaster that Tianxing school had not encountered in tens of thousands of years. If things went wrong, it was possible that the school would be destroyed and cease to exist. Ji Daozong's eyes gradually turned cold. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Originally, everything was under his control, but it was ruined by a woman. "You crazy woman, you're unlucky, and you want others to be as unlucky as you. You're mentally twisted and deformed. However, it's a pity that it won't be so easy for you to harm us. You want to rely on these people to shake us? Dream on." Hua Luiying slowly raised her eyes and gnawed at Ji Daozong. Her eyes were terrifying, like the eyes of a dead person. "I'm mentally twisted? If it weren't for the revenge I suffered back then, would I have fallen to this state? Revenge?" Ji Daozong said, "Who's taking revenge on you?" Hua Luiying actually broke into a smile. Her smile was a little smug, and also a little gloating. It was even more frightening. "If we harm someone together, of course that person will take revenge on us." Ji Daozong's expression froze. Jiang Luoxia, at this point, Do you still have to hide your head and show your tail? Everyone at the scene was shocked. Hua. Immediately, there was an uproar. How many souls were shocked by Hua Luiying's Dr. Jiang Luoxia? No one dared to believe it, but they heard it clearly. This cry of Jiang Luoxia's echoed through the mountains like a response. Jiang Luoxia. Ji Daozong's expression changed greatly. What did you say? Hua Luiying said. Do you think that in the current immortal martial arts society, other than Jiang Luoxia, who else can force me, Hua Luiying, to this state without bloodshed? You're saying? Everyone's expression changed. Jiang Xiu is Jiang Luoxia? Hua Luiying said. That's right. Jiang Xiu is Jiang Luoxia. The scheme that harmed me started from Zhaixing Lu. 100 underworlds converged, 7 stars aligned. The blue dome of heaven opened its eyes, and Qingling appeared. Other than me, only he knows this sentence. Who else could it be? He's taking revenge on me, and none of you can escape. None of you can escape. Ha 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 ha. She laughed maniacally and proudly, as if it was a very happy thing for these people to suffer together with her. Jiang Xiu, who was in the corner, heard Hua Luiying's words and laughed out loud. Hua Luiying, you're still the best. You're actually sure that I'm Jiang Luoxia? He admitted it. Countless pairs of eyes looked over, passing through group after group of people, finally landing on the arrogant man in the corner. Ji Daozong was stunned. Elder Ji was stunned. Wushang Sparrow was stunned. Luli was stunned. Qin Qing and the others were even more stunned. Even Yan Longyue, the corpse god Taoist, Jiang Shitua, and the others' expressions changed greatly. The group of people from Jiezong on the distant mountain was also extremely shocked. Jiang Luoxia. He's Jiang Luoxia. He's still alive? When Jianyi heard Jiang Xiu's voice, his entire body shook violently. Tears welled up in his tiger-like eyes. The moment he saw Jiang Xiu, all the hairs on his body stood on end. That arrogant demeanor, that cold gaze, it was Shizuan. With a thud, he knelt down heavily on both knees and shouted, Shizuan. Crossing his knees, he desperately knelt towards Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu looked at Jianyi, and for the first time, there was a little more tenderness in his indifferent eyes. When he heard Jianyi call him master, it felt as if a lifetime had passed. Master, you are really still alive. Jiang Xiu looked at Jianyi's raised face. The scars that flowed through his tears, his aged skin. These were all the hardships he had suffered all these years. If your Shizuan doesn't want to die, no one can kill him. Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with anger and murderous intent. Let's not catch up today. Let's get down to business first. Ha 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 ha. Hua Luiying was laughing. He was laughing crazily. No, there's no reason. Ji Daozong's head was buzzing. This person whom he regarded as an ant and thought that he could control his life and death at will was actually Jiang Luoxia. In that case, it wasn't him who was controlling him, but him who was being played in the palm of his hand. It was laughable that he had asked him to pretend to be Jiang Luoxia. He thought that it was a brilliant move, but it turned out to be the biggest joke in the world. Elder Ji and Wu Shangke looked at each other. They had their suspicions before, but they had tested his blood. Elder Ji said, You're really sect leader Jiang? Jiang Xiu looked at him indifferently. You don't think this Shizuan is? His tone and demeanor made Elder of Law Enforcement's blood boil. That's right, that's it, 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 that's it. Supreme Elder, your gauze can be exchanged for a life. It was a gift from this Shizuan when we first met. Xiaoya shouted, Greetings, sect leader. Hua. One person shouted, and 10,000 people responded. No, more than 100,000 people responded and knelt down. Greetings, sect leader. The sound was monstrous, reverberating in the mountains for a long time. It rang in people's ears and shook people's hearts. Sect leader Jiang was back. Our sect leader Jiang was not dead. At this moment, the eyes of the disciples of Tianxing School burst with a blazing light. They saw hope. The return of the glory of the dead made their blood boil again. It was as if they had been reborn. Let the 9 mysteries cleanse the heavens, 1,000 years of work. Even without a square inch, it's still outstanding. Jiang Xiu's footsteps were neither fast nor slow, neither heavy nor light. but every step he took seemed to cause the world to collapse. Ji Daozong couldn't help but retreat. Lan Longyue was retreating, the corpse god Taoist was retreating, Jiang Shitua was retreating, everyone was retreating. Only now did they realize how frightening Jiang Luoxi's aura was. This was the true Tianqing school's sect leader. When the elders of the distant world sect saw this scene, they couldn't help but be speechless. They were extremely shocked. This was Jiang Luoxia. Was this Jiang Luoxia's aura? As expected of the most dazzling genius of the immortal martial continent in the past 3,000 years. I didn't expect to see such a good show today. We didn't rush here in vain. Chapter 688. No one would have thought that this opening ceremony would cause so much trouble. After experiencing shock and fear, Ji Daozong slowly calmed down. He looked at Jiang Xiu and said indifferently, Jiang Luoxia, you shouldn't have survived. Even if you survived, you should have shrunk away like a turtle. Jiang Xiu coldly smiled. Is that so? Ji Daozong shook his head at Jiang Xiu as if he felt that it wasn't worth it. In the end he said, your cultivation has been crippled. What's the point of you standing out? You'll only lose your life in vain. Jiang Xiu indifferently looked at him. Is that so? Ji Daozong said. You can't be hoping that the remaining 8 elders will help you turn the tables. Stop dreaming. They've been busy since ancient times and can't help you at all. Law enforcement elder said. Ji Daozong, you scum of the sect. We have 8 immortal kings here. Even if we die, we'll bury you with us. Ha ha ha. Ji Daozong actually laughed loudly. You're all too naive. In order to kill you rebels in one fell swoop, you think this sect wouldn't be prepared for you to rebel together? Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Indeed, when Q-Sword Elder started the coup, Xiaoye, Qiliandian, and Shan Ko weren't moved by Q-Sword Elder. However, there was a possibility that they would be moved. Since Ji Daozong put on such a big show, he would definitely be prepared for it. Law enforcement elder said. What do you mean? Ji Daozong's smile was very sinister. What do I mean? Is your cheap life worth us risking our lives for? Brother Yanlong, the corpse god Taoist, and the Taihua sect disciples all have much higher status than you. Why would we risk our lives for you? Look at the sky. Everyone looked up and found that there was a faint black light scattered high up in the sky. However, as it descended, the black light became brighter and brighter. This is... Suddenly, everyone's expression changed greatly from Tianqing School's expression. Looking through the layers of white clouds, they saw a red umbrella that looked like an oil paper. This umbrella's light was very strange. It was very weak, but it could be felt from tens of thousands of meters away. Soul-sucking black umbrella. It was a magical instrument used by Tianqing School to suppress souls. Haven't you felt it yet? Ji Daozong's face was full of ridicule. Over the past few days, I have deliberately arranged for your bodies to be contaminated with death aura. Once the samurai soul black umbrella finds the death aura, it will cover your souls. The faces of the elders paled. In the end, he still couldn't outsmart the scum of the Ji Dao sect. Did you feel it? Ji Daozong said. The samurai soul black umbrella isn't that powerful. It's just a type of imprisonment type magic artifact. I have a soul type defensive magic artifact, the Sky Traverser token. Once I toss it up into the sky, you guys can take the opportunity to escape the Samurai Soul Black Umbrella's attack. Everything will be fine. However, without the Heavenly Conduct title plate, no one will be able to open it. The faces of all the elders present turned gloomy. Their souls were bound, and they couldn't use their magic power. They had no fighting power at all. It's over. It's all over now. I was too careless. The aura of death was very subtle, and it was possible to get a little bit of it on one's body. It would not have any adverse effects on one's body, so it was not easy to detect. Elder Ji and the others cursed loudly. Despicable. Ji Daozong laughed loudly when he heard that. He looked as proud as he could be. How is it, Jiang Luoxia? Are you still dreaming? Wake up. Jiang Xiu looked at him indifferently. Ji Daozong pointed at Jiang Xiu and said, You guys still think of him as a savior? He's not the Jiang Luoxia of the past. He's a good-for-nothing now. He can't even compare to an ordinary disciple. Jianyi flew into a rage, but he was stopped by Jiang Xiao. Jiang Xiao said indifferently, "Is that so?" Ha ha ha. Hua Luiying's deranged and mocking laughter rang out once again. She waved her long sleeves. At this moment, the setting sun gradually seemed like it was about to set, illuminating the horizon with a fiery red color. Everyone present was also dyed a fiery red. Ji Daozong was furious at her laughter. He could always hear the contempt in Hua Luiying's laughter, as if he would be unlucky the moment Jiang Luoxia came, as if he was not even fit to carry Jiang Luoxia's shoes. "Stop laughing, you crazy woman." Hua Luiying finally stopped laughing and said, "Ji Daozong, you're unlucky. You're going to be in big trouble." Ha 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 ha. Humph. Ji Daozong couldn't be bothered to lower himself to the level of a crazy woman. "Jiang Luoxia, since you didn't die that year, then this sect will let you die completely." Without waiting for Jiang Xiao to speak, he wouldn't need to be anxious if it were someone else. However, he had lived under Jiang Luoxia's shadow for 3,000 years, and was too afraid. Jiang Xiao stood in front of him. Even though he clearly knew that Jiang Xiao was just a good-for-nothing, he still felt afraid in his heart. "Be careful, sect leader." He had already clawed over with one hand. Suddenly, a terrifying force surged toward Jiang Xiao's chest. Humph. However, Jiang Xiao didn't retreat. Instead, he snorted coldly. A small golden shield condensed from a strange rune pattern had appeared in his hand at some point in time. With a light turn, it instantly grew to about 10 feet in size and blocked in front of him. As the golden shield shone brightly, circles of golden patterns appeared. Upon closer inspection, there were as many as 99 layers. Waves of deafening crashing sounds came from within. The 99 layers of golden patterns lit up, and golden light constantly flashed from within. Ji Daozong's claw actually collided with the shield after a blur. Boom. Everyone present only felt as if their ears were filled with a loud noise between heaven and earth. Before they could even react to what was going on, the earth-shattering explosion of the shockwave dispersed in all directions. Their hearts were filled with grief. Jiang Luoxia's cultivation was now completely crippled. How could he block an attack from a celestial king? Phew! Yan Longyue, the corpse god Taoist, Jiang Shitua, and the others all breathed a sigh of relief. Someone who should have died 60 years ago suddenly appeared in front of them. Moreover, he was such a terrifying person. To be honest, they were really nervous and uneasy. It was better to just kill him. When they opened their eyes again and saw everything clearly, they saw that Jiang Xiao was still safe and sound in the battlefield. Ji Daozong looked at Jiang Xiao in disbelief. He was trash who had undergone spiritual cultivation again. Although he didn't do much, he should have been able to crush a heavenly god-level trash. How could he be safe and sound? No, his natal divine artifact was destroyed. Once he used his magic power, he should have exploded and died. What's going on? What's going on? How? Yan Longyue and the others were also confused. Master. Jianyi was delighted to see that Jiang Xiao was safe and sound. Although the elders were happy, they were also puzzled. How did Jiang Xiao block Ji Daozong's attack? Ha 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 ha. Hua Luiying's laughter rang out once again. Ji Daozong, you're out of luck. You're out of luck. Ha ha ha. Crazy woman, shut up for this sect. Ji Daozong's face was ashen. Jiang Luoxia, you call yourself the head of Tianxing School. Fine, I'll kill you today. Roar. Ji Daozong roared. White light sand filled the air behind him and gradually condensed into a mysterious rune. Then, the rune let out a terrifying bestial roar. A dense storm of power rushed over. This bestial roar turned into an ancient curse. Unlike before, the talisman in the sky was much more complete. It gave off an ancient and boundless feeling. After it exploded, it turned into countless green talisman characters. They didn't attack Jiang Xiao, but instead flashed into his body. His body emitted a rumbling sound, and his theory suddenly surged violently. White flowing light rolled out from his body. Heaven's judgment, 100 generations of loneliness. Boom. However, what followed was Jiang Luoxia's voice that was exactly the same. Heaven's judgment, 100 generations of loneliness. However, The runes that surged behind him weren't the same as the runes that appeared behind Ji Daozong. They were more ancient and more difficult to predict. His body lit up with the mysterious heavens questioning talisman. No, that's impossible. Everyone cried out when they saw Jiang Luoxia use heaven's judgment, especially Ji Daozong. This was Tianqing School's most mysterious immortal cultivation technique. How could a god cultivator like Jiang Luoxia use it? Chapter 689. Immortal techniques cultivated the great Tao, while divine cultivators cultivated the Godhead. They were two completely different paths. Jiang Xiu had actually used the supreme immortal technique of Tianqing School as a divine cultivator. This was really unbelievable. What made them even more astonished was that Jiang Xiu wanted to use the same secretary to resist Ji Daozong. Ji Daozong sneered. He was shocked that Jiang Xiu, a divine cultivator, could use an immortal technique. However, a mere heavenly god could also fight against an immortal king. You're overestimating yourself. Jiang Luoxia, your era has passed. The current era belongs to Ji Daozong. Die. Jiang Xiu sneered. Is that so? He kept making hand seals, and his fingers moved quickly like a wheel. They were all finger shadows, and power was constantly bursting forth. How? Ji Daozong felt an indescribable pressure. It was as if the power of an immortal king was pushing toward him from the front. His face, body, and veins all over his body felt a heart-wrenching pain. Even though he had always been tough, this kind of pain went deep into his bones, and even he couldn't bear it. No, there's no reason. Ji Daozong looked as if he had seen a ghost. Where did Jiang Xiu's cultivation come from? This power. His eyes were full of shock and disbelief. Everyone in Tianqing School was pleasantly surprised. The law enforcement elder and the others were happy, but they were also on the same side as Ji Daozong and the others. Although Jiang Luoxia was still Jiang Luoxia, he had already changed from an immortal cultivation to a divine cultivator. During the true inheritance battle, he was only a heavenly god. Now he was able to resist an immortal king, Ji Daozong? However, the shock had just begun. What? Are you surprised? Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Didn't you say that I was trash? The light of runes flashed all over the sky, and each rune emitted the roar of heaven and earth from ancient times. Suddenly, there was an explosion, and the heavenly reflection of 100 years of solitude crushed over and suppressed Ji Daozong's power. One had to know that this was a power that 3 immortal kings could resist together. Ji Daozong felt as if his entire body had lost consciousness at this moment. His heart was filled with shock. He actually couldn't bear it anymore. You better not be worse than trash. Ji Daozong was shocked and angry. He quickly made hand seals, but he was shocked to find that Jiang Xiu was also making runes. Jiang Xiu was even faster than him, and the light of the runes was even more dazzling. Seeing this, he could only desperately increase the output of his spiritual power, but then his face turned pale. Although he was barely able to keep up, one could imagine how difficult it was to follow someone's ass. It was like an old cow pulling a large cart. It was overweight and fell down a slope. It couldn't go up, and it couldn't go down. He had to force himself to move forward. He could only choke on his blood. The pain was unbearable. If he continued like this, he would only exhaust himself to death. There's no reason, Ji Daozong cried out in his heart. Not only the Ji Daozong, but Lan Longyue, the corpse god Taoist, Jiang Shitua, and the others were also shocked. How could this be? Even if Jiang Xiu had just become a god cultivator, how could he be so powerful? This is the power of a divine king. Lan Longyue reluctantly narrowed his eyes. His expression became incomparably dignified. Yes, a divine king. The corpse god Taoist echoed. Apart from the fact that Jiang Xiu was already a god king, there was no other explanation. What he had drawn upon was the extremely mysterious power of the void. There was no mistaking it. On the same level of cultivation, Jiang Xiu's attainments in the heavenly reflection mirror far surpassed Ji Daozong's. Jiang Xiu had studied the heavenly reflection mirror for over 700 years while Ji Daozong had only studied it for a dozen years. Moreover, Jiang Xiu's talent was above Ji Daozong's. Ah! Mixed with pain and anger, Ji Daozong was like a mad demon, like a caged beast. Jiang Luoxia. This roar was more like his final venting. Boom! Like a missile exploding in front of him. Ji Daozong could no longer hold on, and was sent flying by this earth-shattering power. Good job, Sect Master. The disciples cheered in excitement. Jianyi, Azurite, Qin Qing, and the others felt their blood boil and their entire bodies burn. Master is still as strong as ever. Or, Jianyi's eyes were brimming with tears. He knew that his master had returned. He had truly returned. Senior brother Lin, senior brother Gu, junior brother Su, do you see it? Do you see it? Master is back. Hua Luiying's sinister laughter rang out again. Ha ha ha, Ji Daozong, you're out of luck, ha ha ha. No, Ji Daozong held in the sky, his eyes filled with unwillingness, struggle, and anger. The two had fought many times, from disciple to elder, and then to sect master. Although Jiang Luoxia hadn't taken him seriously, Ji Daozong had always thought of himself as Jiang Luoxia's rival. Although he'd never won, he'd never lost so miserably. He'd been exhausted to death in one move? You're still far from being able to play with me. Jiang Xiu's figure flashed in the sky, darting left and right. The killing intent in his eyes condensed into a terrifying cold light. The Tianqing school had rebelled to the point where it had to bow down. You're still the boss. The elder of Fongjie sect in the distant mountain had a solemn expression. A dog travels thousands of miles to eat, while a wolf travels thousands of miles to eat meat. For someone like Jiang Luoxia, whoever goes against him is digging their own grave. He's too strong. The disciples behind him were also extremely shocked. He'd been harmed to this extent and had reached the stage of spiritual cultivation as a crippled immortal. Yet he could still cultivate to this level. There was probably no other person in the world who could do this. Oh no! Ji Daozong is in danger. Seeing Ji Daozong's defeat, the immortal kings on the opposite side all paled. If Ji Daozong was killed, a good buffer between them would be broken, and they would lose a huge combat power. At this moment, they made their move. Jiang Shitua jumped down from the flying ship in the sky, like a fish in water. He turned into a stream of light, but his speed was amazing. This was a top expert that even Ji Daozong was far inferior to. Back then, when he fought with Jiang Luoxia at his peak, he was only at a disadvantage. Two streams of clear qi rushed out from his body like two snakes, one turbid and the other turbid. One qi dual transformation, it's Tai Hua. In the soft brilliance, a dragon's roar resounded. Lan Longyue also rushed over quickly. His strange escape technique caused the void to turn into a passing shadow, and his whole body seemed to be flashing. Dragon Soul Tribulation Saber, it's Wu Xian. The corpse god Taoist didn't dare to fall behind. He turned into a black flame and shot over. He actually arrived in an instant. Suddenly, the black flame exploded, and a strange creature in the black fog that filled the sky bared its fangs and brandished its claws to devour. Next corpse god. Several immortal kings rushed over in an instant, and the battle broke out in an instant. Jiang Xiu was trapped in a 1 versus 4 situation. At this moment, everyone held their breath. It was said that immortal kings killed 1 with 4. The number of people on the other side was enough, and all of them were first-class experts. There was also Jiang Shi on the side, and Jiang Yan and several other immortal kings on the flying ship. Alas! Elder Fongjie on the distant mountain side. Jiang Luoxia was already very shocking. He defeated the powerful Ji Daozong in 1 move, but in the end, there were too many enemies. No one could withstand the encirclement of so many immortal kings. It might be possible to escape, but in front of Jiang Xiu, he had to save the 8 immortal kings of Tianqing school and hundreds of thousands of disciples. He could only fight. How could he possibly win? No matter how powerful a person was, no matter how valiant a man was, in front of the wheel of fate, he could only sigh and sigh, leaving behind the endless regret of his descendants. Master! At present, the only thing that Tianqing school hoped for Jiang Xiu to do was to kill Ji Daozong before he was besieged. He wanted to kill this scum of the Tianqing school, who colluded with outsiders to persecute the school. Ah! Jiang Xiu uttered the first word in the world. The sun had already set in the eastern horizon, and a rising sun slowly rose into the sky. Then Jiang Xiu's entire body turned pitch black. His body was like a vortex that had been refined into one. Streaks of grayish-white lines suddenly emerged from his body and emitted a faint halo, mysterious and boundless. Ha ha ha. Hua Luiying looked at him from the corner of her eyes, and her smile was very evil and sinister. Her laughter was so happy that she was completely dazed and crazy. Yan Longyue, corpse god Taoist, Jiang Shitua, you're going to be in trouble, you're going to be in trouble. Ha ha. Chapter 690. Resplendent rays of light flashed across the sky, displaying the glory of an immortal king and a divine king. Powerful energy illuminated everything in the void, so dazzling that it was intoxicating. Hua Luiying's laughter was like a devil's curse. Jiang Luoxia, since you didn't die, I'll let you die again. Ha ha ha. The various celestial kings burst forth with astonishing fighting spirit. Perhaps no one would be able to defeat Jiang Luoxia one-on-one, but 4 against 1, you Jiang Luoxia, might not be able to defeat 4 against 1 at your peak, let alone now. Die. Ji Daozong finally stabilized himself, and he opened his mouth to spit out a mouthful of sword qi essence. It suddenly expanded and turned into a golden sword qi that was more than 100 feet in length, and it swept out with astonishing momentum. Before becoming the sect master, the Ji Daozong cultivated external sword essence. It was somewhat similar to sword spirit, but much more difficult. Sword essence didn't have intelligence, but it was the same as sword spirit and other sword cultivators. Different paths led to the same goal, and the final goal was to give birth to a sword soul. When sword qi essence reached sword essence, it could be said to have taken shape. It could be said to be in the state of half a soul. It seemed substantial, but in reality it had no substance. Its attack was close to a soul attack, and its essence was incomparably terrifying sword art and magic attributes. It was very domineering indeed. Jiang Shitua, Yan Longyue, corpse god Taoist, and Ji Daozong's imbecile sword spirit. The 4 immortal kings attacked Jiang Xiu with their killing moves, wanting to kill him. Jiang Xiu's pupils contracted slightly, and his body became blurry. His hands danced and struck out continuously, chaotic and complicated. Heaven's questioning runes flew out continuously, bringing with them terrifying bursts of strange roars of heaven and earth. Like an ancient tsunami, the 4 immortal kings besieging him couldn't see his path clearly. What's this? Elder Fangjie, who was on the distant mountain, was also confused. Jiang Luoxia's magic is so disorderly. Is he messed up in a crisis? Impossible. With his rich battle experience, he should be used to life and death situations. Jiang Xiu lightly spat out. Sword divided into yin and yang. Across the sky, spirit broke the void, fishing alone in the cold river, thought tribulation broken. Amnesty. Boom. The 5 finally fought together. Jiang Xiu only felt his body sink slightly. Although the powerful pressure of the 4 attacks was blocked by the 4 spells, under the strong pressure, his body felt a little unable to bear it, and wanted to vomit blood. Immediately, the Heaven's Inquisition runes on the surface of his body shone brightly, and the mysterious power of the 2 mysterious god elementalist runes on his body immediately surged violently. Boom, boom, boom. For loud sounds rang out. What? Everyone cheered wildly. Their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. How is this possible? Everyone in the Taihua sect, including the elder from the World sect, almost fell off the cliff. Jiang Shitua, Yan Longyue, and the corpse god Taoist were all top experts of the Ji Dao sect, but they were all sent flying by him alone. They struggled to regain control of their bodies in the strange void currents and light. God. God. Ling Ling Lin Jiang 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 King. Were Jiang Jiang. Jiang Jiang Jiang. Jiang Jiang. Was Jiang 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 was? Jiang 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 Jiang. One Jiang Jiang. What kind of monster was the sect leader? Ha 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 ha. Hua Luiying laughed crazily again, as if she had never laughed before. You're unlucky, unlucky. Jiang Xiu's eyes carried a terrifying cold light. No one could see where he was. He kept flashing left and right. Suddenly he seemed to be on the left and right. He was hundreds or even thousands of meters away from each other, leaving behind thousands of afterimages. What kind of secret technique is this? It's too scary. Ji Daoist was shocked. Everyone, don't hold back. You must take him down, take him down. That's right. Fellow Taoists, give it your all. Jiang Shitua agreed and chanted an incantation. A pattern appeared in his hand and he threw it at Jiang Xiui. A huge bull skull appeared. It was the treasure of Tai Hua sect. Ji Daoist had borrowed it to put on a show with him. The corpse god Daoist waved his hand, and a black cloth appeared. In an instant, it covered the sky and earth. It was as if a black shadow had entered. The black cloth was blown over like a wave, but it was over 10,000 kilograms. Under the guidance of the qi, the death qi had already wrapped around Jiang Xiu. This was the corpse god Daoist's treasure. Jiang Xiu had seen it more than once, but he had never seen anyone escape after being wrapped in it. A bright rune light was summoned. It was a moonlight dragon. What was terrifying was that it was a sword. Jiang Xiu had also seen Yan Longyu as Yin Dragon Slash. Back then, in the land of earth fire, the Yin Dragon Slash extinguished all the earth fire within a radius of hundreds of miles. Jiang Luoxia still remembered that scene clearly. In the previous exchange, Jiang Xiu didn't have much of an advantage in terms of strength, but in terms of technique, he relied on his understanding of them to gain the upper hand. Jiang Xiu didn't have a way to break these 3 spells, so he could only resist. His own strength wasn't enough to resist them. Second divine origin appear. The intense power that had nowhere to go left his body. A black shadow that looked exactly like Jiang Xiu appeared. In the blink of an eye, it soared thousands of feet. Jiang Luoxia died. Jiang Xiu moved. The huge second divine origin behind him moved as well. As it moved, Jiang Xiu's strength increased by more than 100 or 1,000 times. With a raise of his hand and a raise of his foot, he was 100 or 1,000 times stronger than an immortal king's strength. The surrounding mountains seemed to be unable to withstand the devastation of an ancient monster. The sky trembled, the mountains cracked, and the earth shook. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. The elder of Square World Mountain was hundreds of miles away. That was equivalent to being several cities away. Because of the shaking of the mountains and the shattering of rocks, he couldn't even stand steadily. The expression on his face was completely stupefied. He had never seen such a powerful force. Jiang Luoxia. His voice trembled. His voice was trembling. In his heart, he had already overestimated Jiang Xiu, but in the end, he still found that he had underestimated him. He felt that his legs were going soft. A dignified immortal king was so scared by Jiang Xiu that his legs went soft. The scene in front of him was too shocking. And those of the Ji Daozong, Yan Longyue, the corpse god Daoist, Jiang Shitua, and the others could feel that, not to mention waiting for Jiang Xiu to cast a spell. Just a raise of his hand was enough to shatter heaven and earth. Their hearts trembled. There was simply no way to play. But in front of them was a battle of life and death. If they didn't die, Jiang Xiu would die. On a narrow path, the courageous would win. When the idol elders of the Tai Hua sect saw this situation, they also knew that the situation was not right. Sure enough, Jiang Shitua shouted, "Attack, kill him!" Jiang Yan, Jiang Shi, and the immortal kings of the Tai Hua sect immediately approached Jiang Xiu in the sky like light fish. Beside them were falling rocks. Jiang Yan angrily swung her hand and shattered a mountain-sized rock that was more than 10 cubic meters. Her expression was incomparably solemn. Kill him. The Ji Daozong went crazy. The fear in their hearts almost made them collapse. Master. Jian Yi Luli and Qin Qing raised their heads to look at Jiang Luoxia. They were so excited that their bodies trembled. Their minds were so hot that they had completely lost the consciousness to think. Luli never dreamed that the very rude man she saw in the pavilion at that time was actually the all-powerful sect master of the Tianxing school, Jiang Luoxia. She also didn't expect that he was so strong. Qin Qing was also confused. This junior brother Jiang, who had followed her and violated the law, was actually the former sect master, Jiang Luoxia. She remembered that she had seen him once before, but from a distance. Jiang Xiu's eyes burst with a strong light. His whole body became blurry again. His hands once again quickly formed a series of hand seals. Just now, everyone didn't understand. It seemed that Jiang Xiu was messing around. But with Jiang Xiu's 4 different spells just now, they vaguely understood what was going on. He should be casting several spells at the same time. Impossible. How can a person cast several spells at the same time? Even if his mind can do it, a person only has one body. It's impossible to run all the spells at the same time. After all, some spells need the support of the body. The 13 immortal kings finally attacked Jiang Xiu. Boom, boom, boom. The world turned into a white light. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.